First order of business, the Pledge of Allegiance.
God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all.
Thank you again. Under announcements and presentations, I do need to announce that the board held an executive session this evening that was to discuss personnel and real estate matters. Next up, we'll have annual stormwater update. I believe Jennifer is going to join us.
Good evening. I'm Jen Groller. I'm the MS4 coordinator for the township. I'm going to be given the yearly update on the stormwater fee, any projects we have going on for the past year. Go ahead. Sorry. Just an overview of the billing for those that aren't familiar. We do have two different types. We have residential and we have non-residential. Residential is billed at a flat rate. It's based on equivalent residential units or ERUs per month, which is billed quarterly. So $9 a month comes out to $27 quarterly. And then you have your non-residential, which is billed upon multiples of the ERUs, 4,000. So that gets billed once a month, and that is based on impervious area, so anything that's not vegetation on the parcel. Go ahead. Believe this is current as of last year. Any municipalities, I don't know if this has been updated, but any ones just surrounding Silver Spring Township that does have stormwater fee. As you can see the list there, I don't think anything has changed, but pretty much everyone surrounding us will be involved with having a stormwater fee set up for their municipality. As far as credits go, currently we have 515 residential accounts that have credits. Of those, that compromises $4,171.50 annually. Non-residential, we're at 173 accounts for $114,861.36. Just to kind of give you a breakdown of that, all of the 515 are low impact credits. We have for the non-residential, we're at 2 low impact, 9 agricultural, 21 BMP credits, 5 educational credits, 122 industrial, and 14 of the manure plan credits. And this is of December 14th of 2024. Delinquents, because I know that sometimes comes up. Our finance team's done a great job of getting everything sorted out through JDSC, the collections agency that we use. They started out with the 30-day letter, which was certified after 120 days of non-payment. They then moved to the 10-day letter. As far as residential versus non-res, we have 104 that are residential, almost 3,000 in penalties there, and 18,000 in collections. For non-res, we have 1,100 in penalties and 13,000 in collections. And again, that is of December, early December of 24. For PRP projects, we had just finalized the 5-year term. That was the 2018 permit through DEP. Kind of rinse and repeat of what I talked about last year for anyone that was here. We did the 5 basin retrofits, the one outside the township here, the 2 con house basins north and south, the Cicada Basin and the Mulberry Basin was the most recent. We also had all of the improvements that were done at the DeFilippo Nature Preserve. Everything was closed out in 2024 of this year. And then we also had the stream restoration was completed at Hoagstown Run. November of 23, we had a note that all of the requirements have been met and the MS4 permit was approved through DEP. No comments as of that point. And as of this past November, our annual report for 22 and 23 was complete and accepted for DEP's permit requirements. So that was the most recent that we've heard from them regarding the annual report that gets submitted annually. Again, kind of going over the projects that were done within the last permit term. I spoke briefly on those. Everything is completed there. Another thing that I did want to point out, very exciting, we were nominated through Central Penn Business Journal as one of the top project awards. This took place in October of last year. There were 15 other projects that joined us for that award, and we're very excited about it. They based that off of the criteria of degree of difficulty, design creativity, working with contractors in the area, construction techniques, and then efforts based on sustainability. So again, very, very exciting for the township to have received that award. We also had the opportunity to work with Cumberland County and have a project completed over at Willow Mill here. This was the rain garden project that was done. So we installed bioswale and the rain garden in that area, introduced some new soils, planted some native species, which will continue to do so in the spring. And then we also did removing and replacing existing stormwater features and adding a new outfall. And again, that was funded through Cumberland County. So again, exciting to collaborate and work with them. What's next? Well, up until this past Saturday, I was a little nervous that I was going to have to stand up here and tell you guys again that we haven't heard anything from the state. But as of this past Saturday, we got word from DEP that they had submitted their draft permit to the PA Bulletin. So they have the 60-day public comment. And after that, they'll be addressing that. So very exciting to finally get that from them, kind of get the ball rolling and see what we're going to be doing as far as projects there. As I've been kind of saying for the longest time, we've been kind of waiting on their direction to see what we're going to do as far as PRP projects. So again, we're moving in the right direction. I think things are going to be starting to be underway soon as far as hearing from them about a permit. From what I'm hearing, a lot of their new requirements are going to be shifting from nutrient sediment reduction to volume runoff management. So they're going to be doing without some of the pollutant control measures from the last permit for some of their impaired streams that are in the area. They're also going to be changing, from what I can tell, something regarding the second MCM, which is outreach factors. So again, this is all just a draft format, so they'll be addressing their comments shortly, and then we'll have our permit to work with for the next cycle. So very exciting about that. Also still in the draft phases, we will be doing something on the hemp property as far as the stream restoration, TBD on that. And then also looking to record BMPs in the township, get that master sheet done. This was another requirement that DEP kind of wanted for us to take on. So hopefully we'll be able to get that complete and get that mapped out and have that available for all to access. So this time I can take any questions if there are any.
Jen,
Yes.
it may be too early to know, do you know if the stream restorations are still going to qualify, being that they're shifting to volume? It sounds like they're moving to more towards the source, right? Is it going to be
Yeah.
more volume control from?
From what it sounds like, yes, it might be that, but I want to look into it a little bit
Okay.
further. It's all still, like I said, out for
Okay.
comment, and they'll address those comments. They have 60 days. So
Got it.
looks like we might have some finalized information towards the summer.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I don't have any questions.
All right. Thank you. Well done. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. All right. We'll invite Ray up for a few other township updates. Mr. Palmer?
Everybody should know, I don't want to underestimate the energy and the amount of work that Jen did to get the permit submitted on time. it is a lot of energy and it's a lot of work. So I just want to publicly say thank you, Jen, for all that work. I also want to say that the staff, and another credit to Jen, we had the good fortune actually to see the permit before it was released Saturday because we had requested a conference call with people from the state to talk a little bit about some ideas and objectives that we have in the township. And in doing so, they said, if you promise not to distribute this, we'll let you see it, but don't send it out because Saturday there'll be a mass email. So again, Jen, I want to say thank you for that and all the energy. So, all right, jump in. This is the December year to date. Just so everybody is aware, obviously a very impactful year. These numbers, again, are pending the receipts of the Q4 EIT and LST. They'll come in sometime in Jan, Feb, and March. And at that point, we'll understand what that means back into the 24 year because we'll collect it in 25. A big year on the real estate transfer and also in permits. We had, as I mentioned last time, we had the largest transaction ever happen in the township. It was a building sold for $141 million in the month of November, and we received those receipts in December. So that's the old world, not the old, but it's the Whirlpool building. So that changed hands. Nancy refused the offer. That's what I was told. She refused the offer. She asked for 441 million. Anyways, so, all in all, very busy year. At the end of the year, we received some pretty large commercial permits, which are big. Obviously, there's to manage those permits, et cetera. So we show the revenue in, and then we'll see the expenses going out this year in terms of managing them. So that's kind of where we are. Was a very, very good year. One of the things, while those revenues are nice, I think it's important for all the people here and people online, is that our staff continues to look at the everyday expenses very rigorously. And so when you throw out these anomalies, these big sales of something or a big permit, your day-to-day expenses will probably show a favorability in there. We're still getting to the final number. So that's a hats off to the staff that we, for our budget of 2024 of about 14.2 million, we were under on the expense side. The only reason we're above is because we made transfers as was indicated in the December meeting. So we'll jump to the next one. So a lot of these you've seen. There's a couple in here that I added this year just to give everybody some quick updates. So Trindle and North Locust Point Road, it's an ongoing project. We have federal money that's been given to us. HRG is part of doing the pre-engineering, and I think it's probably another 2 years away from kind of starting to really go. But I wanted you to be aware that we've done some engineering to help move that project along faster. Everybody knows that intersection's quite dangerous. So we started that project, and one of the things we asked as we got into it, as you go westbound, there's a slight, I'll call it, hump, and we asked that hump actually get contoured lower so that it would even help the sight line as you enter the intersection. So that's already been done, and then we're waiting for some other reports, but that's a project. Evergreen, another section will have their curbs and ramps done. Cost Road culverts, we've received about $200,000 from Cumberland County on their small bridge program. Tonight we'll have a conversation about that. We're going to make a play again for more license plate readers. We, the township, installed 4 of them. That technology's been a great addition to the safety and wellness of our community. It gives our police officers an opportunity to understand when there are things that happen and people who are traveling in the township and shouldn't be or don't have the right registrations and things. They have the ability to monitor that. But it's really meant for, we're a great getaway, unfortunately, for somebody who has retail theft to get right to the highway and get out of here. So now we have the ability to track when that happens, where something happens. And we have other municipalities in the area that have the same readers. So we have this connectivity that goes on amongst our partners. So big win for the community. And just want to say to Chief, thanks. We received funding by some of our businesses who pretty much funded 100% of that. And we're looking to do more of those for the township. Public Works Building, we already mentioned last time, just a reminder, we received $600,000, no match. We received 350. In total, it's about 388 to do the compost design. We just worked on a draft for the compost design. We're still in motion. One of the next steps is going to be for an MPDS permit to be submitted. That'll take quite some time to get that approved, et cetera. We talked about stormwater again. Jen, thank you for the work you did. Costco, has anybody been out on Hemp Road recently at the intersection? You can see they're starting to move the dirt, clear the area. So it's, it's an active construction site. Hemp farm warehouses, we've had conversations. Looks like they're probably going to come in here spring, if not earlier, on the permits to go ahead and start building those. Traffic signal projects, all funded here by grants. And the zoning ordinance draft, PC and zoning hearing board has had one pass through and is going to seek at least one more, if not two more, just to get some feedback from both PC and ZHB. So jump into the next. These are some of the larger grants that we have submitted for. We have been endorsed by our local representative and our senator. This is big money. It's big money because we need big money to make the necessary changes for infrastructure in our roads. So as indicated here, Woods Drive, everybody knows, as we build Costco, we're going to need some help to get through the Woods Drive, help that road. Carlisle Pike feasibility study. We're seeking money for the enhancements down the Carlisle Pike. PennDOT multimodal. That's state and Texaco to help the curves and the contours and the widening. And again, the RCAP, Paul Walters Park, $2.5 million. So all in all, about $9.1 million in submissions. We have already in the late fall of last year have knocked on the doors of those who make those decisions. I think some who may or may not have been here in the fall, we had an opportunity to have PennDOT do a tour with us to make the case about state and Texaco. Those are state roads. They typically are funded by the state. We asked the state to help us prior to that. They told us it's 10 years. We said we can't wait. So we're willing to participate in that, in the project. So having the deputy secretary tour with us, it was a great thing to happen. Jump in the next. You've seen some of the pictures again. Go ahead.
Pedestrian crossways across the Carlisle Pike?
That's one of the, yep. Lighting, pianos, crossings, markings, pedestrian, as much as we can get to enhance the safety. So thank you. This is before we got snow. Most of this here obviously has been graded. Kinsley has been working on this project for a good 7 months now. So we're real excited about where the project is at this point. We jumped through one more. Again, I don't know, did anybody see it before the snow came? Has anybody seen it and what they've done up there? You have? It's a big, big improvement. As you know, there were mounds of dirt with lots of grass and things growing. It really isn't ready to go to the next phase. Next one. So I wanted to do this. So I went out there today. Hemp Bridge, okay? Affects everybody here and anybody that's online. This is where it was in November in the pictures that I had taken. And then I want to go to the next slide. 12/31/24 at 4 o'clock, we opened the Hemp Bridge. Huge, huge win for the township, not just because of its purpose, but also now opening up the ability for people to travel a very, very busy roadway. You know, you think about not just your regular travelers, your buses, also your emergency management services to get to and from quicker. So this is a big win. 4 o'clock, we opened it. Lots of people came by. Lots of people waved. Some got out and actually walked over it. So very excited. And we got there at 4 o'clock, and this was a picture of today that bridge is available. So I just wanted to hats off to everybody that worked on this project. Good. This was the Costco property earthwork started. I was over there today, took some pictures. Go ahead, Scott. And then just quickly, events for 2025. We did this last year. These are some of the events. One of the one I want to mention to everybody is on May 7th is our annual township meeting here. We open it up to the public. Everybody can come. All staff will be available to speak with anybody that comes to the meeting or comes to the township. We have a lot of excitement and a lot of things to share. We enjoy having the community come and see what goes on here. So that is on May 7th, 3 to 6. So please put that in your calendars. Come join us. And, just want to say thank you to everybody. It was an incredible year in 24. Sometimes you say to people, great year, it's going to get a little less exciting or dynamic. It's going to be as if not more dynamic in 25. We still have the busy residential building, busy commercial building, some infrastructure projects as mentioned here, Costco opening, and then, more things are going to come on the hemp property. So real excited. And, also want to publicly say to Chief Robinstein and his team, the police, thank you for the safety that you provide our residents every day. There's never an easy day. I know Chief provides his update. But when you go through this inclement weather, along with our public works team that was out there for 16 hours working, and our staff, and then our police, there's a lot that happens when you have a major snowstorm. There's just a lot. And so I just want to publicly thank both our public works, led by Tyler, and then Chief Robinstein for the safety for our police, for all that you guys do, and then also did recently over the last week as we had some challenging situations. So with that being said, I just want to say thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Ray. Comments or questions for Ray? Okay, we'll move on to public comment. If there is any, come up to the mic, please. Any public comment? Kathy, come on.
I don't have to say my name and all that, do I?
If you won't mind, just for the record.
Kathy Pfeiffer, New Kingston.
Thanks.
Clarence asked me for some pictures this week, and one of the pictures that I had sent to him made me think, oh, where are we at with that? So one of the pictures was our old historic signs. So maybe I ought to direct it over to maybe Ray or Sean, if you know anything about where we are in these signs. This was back in 2012, I think it started, and I think we were in a lawsuit.
It did. There wasn't a lawsuit because by the time I was appointed solicitor, we had a statute of limitations issue.
Okay.
I had reached out, it was 2018, 2019, to the owner of the company, to no avail. Kathy, I think you contacted the township this week, or last week or so.
Yeah, it just made me think.
Yeah.
With that.
Yeah. So I made another attempt to reach out to that owner to see if we can make some contact and maybe get some sort of resolution to it.
Because I think they had like $5,000.
They did have $5,000. That's right.
Dave, you got some of it from the men's club.
Not if that was true, that wasn't during my tenure, and I didn't receive documents on that.
I know this started when Teresa was still
Yeah.
here.
And because like, get a judgment.
Right. Yeah, I haven't received a judgment on that. So at least when it was handed off to me. So if there was a judgment, we can maybe dig into that and see if there was something. Yeah, be happy to take a look at that too.
Still funds remain.
I know you got some from the club. I was going to say, weren't they just making the poles? Was that Rich designed them?
Tried to make them. But there is, I think I had said before, now I think we can go.
Okay.
So it's not a dead issue, it's just a matter, I have to have time
Okay.
to take and I'll probably have Rich go along just so there's a second set of ears and eyes as this goes through to deal with the new vendor or whatever. It's disappointing.
Didn't the son take over? Was it the son? There was somebody got sick. I just forget all
I
the,
think
it's
it was
been
a-
so
I think it was
long.
a song and dance,
Probably was.
and like it was all, every time I drove down there, it was a different story, and that's when I think Sean took it over.
Okay.
So
So it really wasn't a really wasn't a lawsuit. You just kind of maybe like wrote him a letter?
There wasn't one that I was aware of at the time. And so again, when it came to me around 2017, 2018, I think, that's when we, identified there was a statute of limitations issue because of when this all began. And then that's when we reached out just to sort of bluff our way into some sort of resolution to it. I've done some research, so I know there are a few generations of, I think that the owner's name is Roland Borer. So there are about 3 generations of Roland Borers. But I dug up a cell phone number that I was able to reach out to this week.
Okay. Yeah, if you'd let us know what you find out.
Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
Thanks, Kathy. Come on up.
I want to pull this out, but I don't know what to do. Ah, I did it. I'm going to come up here. Debbie Weist, Woods Drive. I'm not here to complain about anything. How about that?
All right. It's okay if you were.
No, it isn't. And I'm going to read this because I'm sort of nervous about this. Hi, everyone. And I hope that you guys don't mind that I'm facing that way with my back to you, but they're really the people I want to address. Should I just jump up? First, I want to give a very brief history lesson. The year was 1983. I was a very young, very bright bank branch manager with a degree in elementary education. I did not like my job. My parents mentioned to me that Paul Ryder, the tax collector for Silver Spring Township at the time for over 20 years, was set to retire. Having no clue as to what a tax collector did, I did the only sensible thing and sent my resume to the township. Because Mr. Ryder was leaving in the middle of his term, the township supervisors would choose the collector until the next municipal election. Over 30 other township residents had the same idea, and the township was inundated with resumes. To this day, I am very thankful to supervisors Lee Duke, Joe Sekovich, and John Rowland for having faith in me to serve the taxpayers of Silver Spring Township. Fast forward 42 years, and I am still thankful to serve the taxpayers of our township. And although those 3 supervisors allowed me to get my foot in the door, it was the voters of Silver Spring Township that continued to have faith in me and to vote me back into office again and again. It's done. Here's some interesting facts. In 1984, the township tax base was $159,217.02. Seriously, I still have the records to prove that. And that was just the township's portion. In 2024, the tax base was $4,161,053.07, an increase of 2,540%. Per capita taxes went from $4,880 in 1984 to $13,450 for this year. To say that the township has grown is an understatement. Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end, and I have made the difficult decision not to run for the position of tax collector in 2025. I still love the job, and I still love my interactions with the taxpayers, and I will still be continuing to collect through this year. But after 42 years, it is finally time for me to enjoy a life of leisure. And as I get older, I realize that our time is not infinite and that a grandson is not going to stay 2 years old forever. I wanted to thank all the taxpayers that have trusted me and voted for me over the years. I will even thank those who didn't vote for me. It has been an honor to have served this community for all this time. Here's a fun one. My only regret is that I was unable to convince the board and the township to eliminate the per capita tax. Thank you again.
Hey, Hey, Deb, I want to say something. If Joe Sikovich was willing to put you on his tax collector, you had to be all right, because Joe is a tough customer.
Thanks, Debbie. Well done. I appreciate that. Okay, any other public comment? I see you stirring. You're welcome to come up if you'd like. No, okay. Anything else? All right. Anybody online? Mr. Lake, if you'd like, floor is yours. John, you there? You seen anything, Scott? Okay. All right, we'll keep moving then. Final call for public comment. All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Does the board have any comments or questions on consent? Mr. Cutsmore?
Yes, I do. And I guess Cheryl, this question is directed to you on the expense report, 122 to 122. The gym membership, I see 24.99. Can you give us the difference between a basic membership and what they call a black membership?
Is that out of the health fund that you were talking, out of?
Um, well, it's with, 117.25, just whatever we got.
Okay, so what that is out of our health fund. In the policy book, we allow the employees to have a membership at Planet Fitness. It is the black card. What they do is we pay for 11 months and we get the 12th month free, and we have no yearly fees for the employees. And that is paid for out of our health fund that we have accrued.
Okay, wouldn't it be better to just go with the basic membership? I'm not saying that memberships to the gym isn't, I mean, that's good for health and as well as your eating habits and stuff like that. But I'm thinking, each year we go through the financial things and we're looking at ways to cut so we don't put the burden back on the taxpayers like myself.
Correct.
And I'm thinking, instead of paying for a member, what does the membership for 24.99, what does that give us?
That gives the employee a black card, so therefore, we have several employees that don't live in the area, so some do go over at lunchtime. Others can go to their home Planet Fitness wherever they live. So it gives them a wider variety to be able to be healthy.
Supervisor Cutsmore, a couple other things too. If you remember, this was out of the wellness fund that we have accrued over the last 5 years. Secondly, I think when we think of wellness, I think wellness goes beyond the employee. It's the employee's family. So that membership also allows people to bring their spouse or children to join them. And I know the board here has been a big proponent of pushing wellness for our staff. Again, this has been funded and accrued from at least 5 years ago that we accrued this, that we had talked to the board about.
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying that, it's not a good thing. I'm just wondering if the basic membership would probably be better, that we could save some money. And it gives pretty much everything except, like for the black card, a massage chair training or massage chair tanning beds and hydro massage beds. But you get the same, not the same thing, but with the basic card, you get the cardio equipment, the classes and stuff, home gym, the ability for a guest for a free day per day, uh, free fitness advice and basic workout program, You can use all the public amenities like showers and lockers and lounge and areas. And I think it's a great thing because I remember working for a private company and I remember working for the state, and we had none of those. I had to provide my own membership that didn't come out of any funds, any state funds or any funds from the private company. So I was just wondering that, probably to save a little money, even on whatever account, it would probably be just as good to go with the basic membership versus the black card membership.
Yep. So again, I think everyone should know that one of the commitments we made is as we looked at our health insurance, and then we're part of the Benecon organization. When we get rebates every year, we committed to putting that into a wellness fund and then support our staff with wellness. And so what it should be noted that money has been is money that we have created in an accrue account for our staff. I'd also say there is a lot to be said, not just for the individual, but to see people bringing their family members as part of that. Again, I think wellness goes beyond just the individual. And it is great to hear that some of our staff who don't live in Mechanicsburg have the ability to keep themselves in shape. I often see many of our police officers, and frankly, on the weekends, a spouse attend when they're out there with wellness. And I think we as a board, and I know our staff pride themselves. I think we also should recognize we had already had a built-in $200 a year amount of money for every employee. So it isn't 100% incremental. We had already had that built in. And I believe there's, how many we've got signed up right now?
There are 45.
45. I think it's pretty awesome to have 45 of your 65 employees utilizing a wellness. And in the scope of things, it's a very, very small amount to support the wellness of our employees.
Yes, I tend to agree with you, but what I'm looking at is the financial part, I guess.
Well, I don't have a
It's self-funded is what I just said, though. It's
This
self-funded.
was part of the budget too.
It's-
I feel like
It was part of the budget.
I think we're rehashing some things that we've already approved, unless, the majority of the board wants to look at that. I think the biggest benefit of the black card, I think it's already been mentioned, is the ability to attend, to really travel. Harry, you can attend any gym with that card, but go ahead, Dave. I feel like we're getting into a rabbit hole. I think it's about $8,000 we're talking about.
Couldn't you sign up at your home Planet Fitness on that though?
Everything has to, it goes through the Silver Spring branch right here. And then with the black card, if they're in Shippensburg, they can go to Shippensburg, or if they're in Carlisle, they can go to the Carlisle one, but everything is done through this main
Well,
branch here.
The only thing I'll say to that is, like, if you're there for physical fitness, that's the basic membership. What do the employees need for the tanning salon and all that other stuff that comes with the higher?
I'm not honestly sure that they use all of the other things. Most that I see are going to work out.
And bring their spouse or their children.
They can't bring them on a basic membership?
No, you cannot.
And you can't attend other gyms, so.
You can't
know,
go from here and then go, I'm going to go to Hampton, or I'm going to go down to Camp Hill or Carlisle. You're not allowed to do that.
On
So
the basic, yeah.
you,
On the basic, you can only go to your home gym.
correct.
There's times that this one's closed too. You can jump down to the Hamden one. You can go to Carlisle, for example. So it gives you flexibility. And honestly, it's even the black card is probably one of the cheapest gym memberships you're going to find in the area. They're probably upwards of 50 plus. And you look at like an LA Fitness, we're already at bargain rates at $25.99 or whatever that is. So
Yeah, and we contacted the YMCA to try to get them, and they're in the mid to high 40s per month per employee. So it has been received very well by the staff.
Dave,
I have
go ahead,
a
Dave.
couple questions. I don't know if this will be for Cheryl, Suba, or the chief. On page one of the expenses, Atlantic Tactical, it says burger for uniform. He's been retired.
Have a new hire, Danielle Berger.
Okay, so it's not Bill. I was gonna say.
Oh, if you're available to come tomorrow to the 8:15 staff meeting, you'll meet this burger,
Yeah, 'cause I
and
see
she's
that.
a little different than Bill.
She's not as imposing.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so then that answers that, because I thought he retired a couple of years ago. This is like a delayed payment. Okay. The other issue on page 101 of the 12225, can someone explain the NLT costs there for the Offinger? Is that the standard or is this above and beyond? I thought we had already approved
We did approve
the
that.
easement.
That is, that's not the easement cost. The easement cost was already approved and paid out to the landowner. That's the cost for natural lands to actually put the easement on the property.
I thought we had already approved that.
We did already approve it. This is the invoice coming back to us.
Took them that long to invoice us.
Yes, yes, I mean, we approved that back in 23. And it took that long to finish the easement. Yes, it did.
So we haven't been billed before. That's what I wanted to make sure.
That's correct.
Okay, page 9, Ray, there was a $19. It said mileage. What's,
Yeah, it's $19 because I went over because I had to get a license plate over at the place there on Carlisle Pike, and I paid them money to get that license plate for the trailer we had just purchased.
so it's not.
Wood chipper.
mileage.
No,
Yeah.
it's not mileage.
Yeah, it was listed mileage and.
It's not mileage.
You're still
I have a
using-
car.
you have
Yeah,
a
I have
car.
the police car. It's not mileage. I'm
Okay.
sorry for the
Well,
confusion.
no, that, like.
Yep, fair
sometimes
question,
the,
sure.
'Cause, all right, then the other issue I have, question wise, December 18th minutes, page 3. I'd like added to the comment pertaining to the interaction between Supervisor Brown and I, that Supervisor Lanker asked Supervisor Brown to read the emails to show that there was no merit to the claim she was referring to about Supervisor Cotsmore bullying her, and that she refused to read the emails. I would like that in the minutes as noted, please. And on page 9, item 2, pertaining to the discussion with the township manager from Hampton, Keith Metz, pertaining to the yard waste agreement. I would like to have that stated that in theory, I'm in favor of that program to continue. However, as it was presented, I did not feel it was in the best interest of Silver Spring Township to enter that, as well as other municipalities feeling that way. And then, I wanted to ask questions on 3 of the items, or 2 of the items, the traffic signal quote in the consent agenda. And, I had a question like on the truck purchase, that'll be quick, so I'd like to see if they could be standalone then, and that's all I have.
Can you just clarify which ones those were, Dave? 7, was it
Uh,
7C?
I think it's under expense. It's 7.
7B and 7D,
Yeah,
Dave?
yeah.
C and D?
B and D,
Oh, B and D, okay, got
yeah.
it. All right, go ahead, Harry.
Under B, on the consent agenda, proposed ordinance 2025-1, repealing vehicle weight limit on the Hemp Bridge. Tyler, even though we won't put a sign up there, we should probably put a sign up there.
So the new bridge has no weight limit,
There's
so
no weight
therefore we
limit.
have to
It's a
repeal it.
maximum allowed by law.
Yeah.
We don't have to-
Okay. The other thing was the purchase of the MS4 truck with a plow. I know we got it from LB Smith. What was the warranty given on that?
Oh boy. I don't have that information in front of me, but I can get it to you. There was warranty on it.
Okay, was that the best place to get a good warranty or? And I think.
I mean,
Yeah,
I'm pretty, from what I remember, it's the standard manufacturer
yeah.
warranty on it.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. Thank you.
yeah, absolutely.
Laura?
Yeah, I was just gonna respond to what Dave had added to the minutes of November 18th. I said that I didn't want to read the emails because I didn't want to drag the audience through all of that. However, I'm happy to discuss the emails if you would like, Dave. The one email where Harry tells me that I must copy him on any email to a planning commission member or to certain members of our staff, or the email where he asserts that as planning commission liaison, he can tell me that I can and cannot speak to the planning commission. Those are both bullying, and they are there and they are part of the minutes for November 18th. So I encourage any resident to please read them and figure it out for yourself.
Nancy, anything to add? All right. Any other comments or questions on consent? If not,
I've got one, Carl.
go ahead, Aaron.
So, and this is my fault for not catching it last week when we were composing the agenda, but C one for change order number 2 for Kinsley. That one, it says in an amount not to exceed 117,500. And I'll check with Sean if this is legally kosher, but this change order probably should say, or the action by the board should probably say an estimated fee of that, because we actually don't know the quantity of stone out there. We'll figure it out as they begin crushing it. It's just a big pile right now.
Will they estimate size and come up?
Yeah, so
Yeah, it was estimated on approximately 9,000
correct.
tons.
So now what actually comes out might need to be adjusted at the time of pay app. I just want to make sure we don't get locked into not exceeding that number in case there truly is more stone than
Understood.
expected. That's all.
Should we put it in by the cubic yard price? And then whatever,
Yeah, so let me address, I think what Aaron's referring to first is the sunshine and the requirement to list items on the agenda 24 hours and post 24 hours in advance. The item was listed on the agenda, so you're allowed to discuss amendments to that item and make revisions to that. So you can go ahead. And so Supervisor Lanker, if you want to make that revision, or the board wants to make that revision, you can fire away with that.
do it now or do it when we do the motion for the consent agenda? How will we do that?
Why don't we just have you make a motion to amend
What was
Item are
the
we-
cubic yard price?
7C,
I
7C1?
don't know off the top of my head. I can probably pull it
Give
up
me a
for you.
minute.
if
Was
you'd
it
like.
part of the bid?
No, so this is a change. We were gonna have them stockpile the stone or export it. Now they're gonna crush it.
Tyler, what do you have?
Why don't would it help, Aaron, if you need to look something up, why don't we just pull this from the consent agenda?
Sure.
Pull 7C, and then give Aaron a little bit of time to get things in front of him.
Yeah, that's all right with the board.
Okay, yeah, I'll look for a motion then. We'll exclude 7B, C, and D, 2 of them for further discussion. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the removal of 7B, C, and D to be standalone and corrections to the minute as I have stated.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Nancy, second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, if any, that motion carries. Let's, yes, sir. I want to keep moving. We're getting hung up here. Let's talk about 7B. Tyler, I think, or Dave, you had some questions on that?
When you,
Yeah, go
real
ahead.
quick, Tyler, I guess, or either you or Aaron, CM High, their quote was 4,000 something, but then when you got into Signal Services, their quote was significantly higher.
Yeah, so what happened was when we bid it out with HRG, it was a signal controller assembly that was an older model. And since then, a newer model came out. So what we want to do is we want to put the newest model in there, and that's what the difference of price was.
So their quote was for the old one.
For the old model, which we had bid out the old model,
Did
but
we-
when we went out to bid, then a new one came out.
Did we give them the opportunity to quote that as well? CM High.
Yeah, CM High is ultimately purchasing it from Signal Service.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
they were bid, that was all one bid in
Correct.
conjunction. I
Yep.
thought it was two separate.
No, no,
I couldn't
no.
figure out how they were that cheap.
No, yeah, exactly. So that's the difference. A newer model, we bid, and the new model came out. It was Jacob Long
Yeah.
was on this project
Correct.
with us. Jacob
that's fine.
brought it to us and said, "Hey, newer model, we should put the newer
No
model."
more, because I've seen the
Yep.
big discrepancy. in
Yeah,
price.
that's what it was. Yep.
Okay,
In the truck, Dave?
yeah, we purchased this, what, technically like 4 or 5 months ago?
December 8th is
Oh,
when it came in.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
We just have to ratify
so
it.
if we said no, you're taking it back. to the spend, or what?
No, yeah, you know what, I will say, Sue, I appreciate I mean that, I appreciate it. So what the auditor would say when they look at the capital assets, they say, this is a capital asset you purchased. Where do you show that in the record? Even though we had it approved, we needed to show that in the record, but thank you. I mean that.
Yeah, I was just asking because I thought to myself, we already have it.
We were originally thinking we were going to be a 25 purchase, and then we found one available in December,
I understand.
and we moved forward with the purchase.
So thank you for the question, though.
No, so that answers that question. I'm fine then.
And then on Kinsley, we probably can act on it. $11.75 per cubic yard was the quote.
11.75.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I think we can close out consent then. I'll look for a motion on 7B, C, and D.
Okay, well, I'm gonna do all three, but I'm gonna spell out C.
Okay.
I will make a motion that we approve 7B, C, and D, and 7C being that we approve a unit cost of $11.75 for the stone crushed at whatever the estimated tonnage based on the pile size is.
We have a motion from Dave. Is there a second?
Second.
Nancy, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any, that motion carries. All right, we'll move on to public hearing. We have just administrative step we have to take. This is the zoning ordinance text amendment. I'll turn it over to Solicitor Schultz to help us through the administrative process here.
Yeah, and this, we received a request on this item. It would be ordinance number 2024. It's an application for amendment to the zoning ordinance, number R 2024-1 by Statewide Partners LLC. As occurred last month, they're still working through some public comment they're aware of, and want to continue working on addressing that. They submitted a request today to continue to your next meeting, and also again agreed to cover any additional advertising costs that would be incurred by the township. So we would just need a motion and approval of a continuance to your meeting on February 26th at 6:30.
Okay, thank you, Solicitor Schultz. Is there a motion to continue?
Motion to continue.
There's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Laura, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, if any, that motion carries. Unfinished business, we have ordinance 2024-10, which is the driveway slopes. Is there any further discussion? We had visited this last month. Anything from staff? We could take 1A and B if the board's comfortable. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 2024-10 driveway slope and the addition to the township improvement specification manual to include the update of the driveway slope to 12%.
We have a motion from Dave. Is there a second?
Second.
Harry, second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, if any, that motion carries. All right, we have woodland buffer discussion. Where do we start? Turn this over to staff for a quick overview, or you like the board to tackle it, Scott?
Sure. So the board directed staff to give a recommendation. You have my policy briefing. If you want me to go through it, I can. If not, then you have my recommendation, and let me know what you guys want to decide.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Where is the board at? Any discussion?
I spoke to Scott. I was the one that spoke with, obtained the clearances suggestion. Scott like left it to me, like there's what, one track left that for the warehousing that it would pertain to, that everything else would be redevelopment opportunity if they would do anything with the sites. So he said that probability of this coming into play not be that great. So I don't know with the rest of the board. I was kind of hoping it would come into more of a play, but Scott does not think that there's that many tracks left.
Scott, staff called out, I think, the existing ordinance with setbacks and buffers and things. What's your take on how it differs in general?
So there's two ways to answer that. So one, the current buffers that are in there have set amounts, whereas this proposal puts it into conditional use applications where those could be enforced as a reasonable condition based on a conditional use application. So again, in my, so in here I said, I want to, and I put this in here, I want to say, I acknowledge the tremendous amount of work that Clarence put into this. And I know he ran it through a lot of boards. He ran it through this, this board. He went to planning commission, zoning hearing board. He went to a lot of places. So I don't want to diminish anything that he did. He, he did it exactly how we asked him to run it through. There are some good ideas, but again, I said this at planning commission. I said this at zoning hearing board. This would have been great 20 years ago, before development was here, for multiple reasons that there could be bigger setbacks possibly. However, it's staff's opinion that ultimately that if this is in a conditional use aspect, it could be an undue hardship on the developer that we would have to prove, as to unless they agree to it. And like Supervisor Lanker said, yes, there are no industrial spots pretty much left unless it's redevelopment. We have a lot of commercial that this could affect where there's already zoning issues and there's already setback issues that would create some type of hardship, in my opinion. So it's our opinion that we should keep this as a saved document on, the township's server, and possibly on a case by case bring it up when it seems fit, not making it an actual requirement of zoning ordinance that, to be honest, if I was the developer or if I was the engineer, I don't know how I would prove some of this stuff. So I just, again, that doesn't take back that it's a great idea. It just, I don't know how we would place it in the ordinance.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Nancy?
I like in this document that Scott prepared well. He suggests using this as a tool for reviewing applications, and I think that's, kind of what we have to do.
I like I like when I read it, what Clarence had in it. The hard part is, I mean, that's why I wanted to talk to Scott about it to see if there was teeth. And he really said that with what's left in the township, that, with the redevelopment, it makes it hard to utilize it. But he said in concept, it was a great idea because I thought there was merit to it. But he explained everything to me, Clarence. It's like, or it seems like we always run late to the race. So.
Yeah, come on up. I was gonna invite you up, Clarence, if you had anything.
As far as the actual proposal for the woodlands goes, I understand that there isn't much land left, but I would suspect that 20 years ago, when we all seem to agree that this would have been a good idea. Someone was saying something the same thing. Just because right now things are zoned so you can't get much more, doesn't mean that can't change with a different board. And I would certainly like to see, even if it never gets used, to be put into the zoning ordinance, or at least not considered for that very reason. However, I do recognize the fact that this would be hard to put into the zoning ordinance. And in fact, the very original rendition of this was as a condition. It was not to go into the zoning ordinance, because even back then I recognized it. It was only while I was bringing it through the various staffing functions that basically it was decided that if it wasn't in the zoning ordinance, it simply wouldn't be recognized. It wouldn't be used. And so if it was going to have any kind of a life, that would be the way to do it. I still think it's useful as a tool in a toolbox as a condition. And as Scott said, where it makes sense to use it. Because there's sites out there that we don't think are going to get developed in the way they're going to get developed, and I disagree. And one example would be the West Shore manufactured home community, Libby's mobile home right now. Where it's located, it's not going to remain residential forever. That's going to become a commercial or industrial site. It just makes sense with everything going on around it. This proposal would then be able to take whatever goes in there and give us the kind of offset that we need, the setback, assuming that not all of it goes commercial. Maybe some of it goes commercial, some of it stays residential. But there are examples like that right now we're not considering that could happen. But as I said, I always consider this to be a conditional use only, so I'm not opposed with the way it's finally landed out. I think it was useful to have the conversation. I think it was very useful to be able to introduce the idea of a toolkit where we do have other conditions. And one example I'll use is Chairman Mockmer during the CarStar thing, where you brought up the loading and unloading on the Carlisle Pike. Okay, that's not going to be the last commercial development we have in the Carlisle Pike. We're going to want to use that again and again. That should be codified in some way and also put into the toolbox with a lot of other things that we're learning as we go along. And that's one of the things I was looking for. So I thank you for the consideration of all this. I thank you for all the time that we got. And I hope the conversation was worthwhile.
Thank you,
Carl,
Clarence.
could I just add,
Go
could I
ahead.
just add a
Go
couple
ahead, Scott.
things? So just to re-clarify, the reason why it was written, the planning commission, because the planning commission tends to see a lot of this. The reason why it was suggested that if it wasn't in the ordinance is because, again, if it's a reasonable condition, right, the applicant has to agree to it. So to make it mandatory, they said you'd have to put it in the ordinance. Because again, you'd have to prove that it was a reasonable request, or the applicant would have to agree to it. So that's why it was written this way. Just like Clarence said, the infancy was the toolbox, and I still think the toolbox is fair. We'll put it somewhere. And again, we have, I did Clarence knows this, but I did consider a lot of the properties that on the Carlisle Pike. But again, a lot of this Carlisle Pike have huge setbacks off the pike that are already preset. And also a lot of those parcels are limited in a way as well, because rezones will have to happen and other things like that. So I did consider all the township and possible rezoning areas, just so the board knows.
Thanks, Scott. Any other comments from the board? Okay.
Well,
Go ahead, Dave.
Scott, would it pay to put it in, like Callahan said, for future? Because, 40 years ago, people would have laughed if you said, we're going to have zoning where we have it now.
Let's put it this way. If we put it in, how are we gonna judge what's a reasonable buffer on one property compared to another property compared to another property? If the one property, and I'll pick on a property, and just just because one comes to mind. The old Ashley Furniture site that's now the Pine Creek, I think. I believe it's Amish or Mennonite structures. They're behind, that's C3, behind is R1. So in this conditional use, if something that was conditional use, we already have setbacks in there that say you have to be 50 feet from a property line for commercial off of residential. We already have 20 feet off that. That parcel is only 200 feet wide, you know, from the back of the parcel to the Carlisle Pike. So what is a reasonable buffer area from that residential area that we would put on a conditional use for, let's say, some use, and then we'll go down 4 parcels, and then what's the reasonable condition on there? Again, you guys can make that determination case to case because it's a conditional use. You have that ability, but does it create a undue hardship on the applicant that we're then going to have to walk back? And that's something I don't know how we're going to judge case to case and how we're going to apply to the entire ordinance. So again, I put my recommendation here that to be a toolbox idea, and I that's my recommendation.
Anything else?
No, thanks,
Okay.
Scott.
All right. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Clarence.
Thanks, Scott. Thank you, Clarence.
All right, let us move on to subdivision and land development. First item is a waiver request for 125 Cost Road.
And I can handle this. So for both, sorry, not for both, for all items 1, 2, and 3, let me make sure there's not more. Yeah, for those, for items 1, 2, and 3, this is an issue that we keep coming across. And I told the applicants to help save them money and the trouble that I would present these waivers for them. It's dewatering time for BMPs. In Silver Spring, we have a lot of karst geology that sucks up water really quickly. And DEP's requirement is that it should take at least 24 hours for that to happen. If it goes too quickly, it can get into the water table without filtering everything, is at least the theory. But that's nearly impossible here where we are. In order for someone to do that, to extend how long it takes water to infiltrate into the ground, they would actually have to shrink their stormwater facilities and make them almost like a pinhole. So all that water concentrates in one spot and creates sinkholes. So in the past, the board has approved these waivers for dewatering time for less than 24 hours. And we are recommending continued approval of those waivers in these 3 cases. Also note for number 1, the applicant has withdrawn waiver 2, the plan and profile on same sheet. That was recent. So you don't need to act on that. For all 3, it would just be dewatering.
Aaron, would it make sense to look at this requirement, given, as you said, we see this quite often?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think we can change it ordinance wise because
We have different soil types here.
we do.
Yeah, so it makes
But
it
also DEP, and you're right, Dave, so it's kind of like, it's hard to come up with a one-size-fits-all solution, but speaking of one-size-fits-all solutions, this requirement is actually from DEP's model ordinance.
Okay.
So they say we have to have a dewatering time of minimum 24 hours, maximum 72. But we are allowed to give waivers in special circumstances, and our geology is that circumstance.
Okay, thanks, Aaron.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions? I'll look for a motion on item 1, which is just the one waiver, the dewatering calc.
Make a motion to approve.
Dave moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Harry second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, if any, that motion carries. Is there a motion on number 2?
I'll take 2 and 3 because they're both pretty much the same here for dewatering. I'll make a motion to approve 108 Beach Cliff Drive SW-240012 and 228 Skyline Drive SW-240013.
There's a motion on the table for 2 and 3. Is there a second?
Second.
Nancy second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, if any, those motions carry. Number 4 is Walmart preliminary final land development plan. Do we have representatives? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Michael Myers from Dewberry Engineering, representing the Walmart Superstore. This project is about a 3,500 square foot building expansion and restriping for online order pickups. There's no increase in impervious area. We were recently went in front of the Planning Commission Board and were recommended a conditional approval dependent upon our meeting of the township engineers' minor comments. The comments that we were given are not going to have anything to affect the real project design. They're more administrative in nature.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Myers.
Mhm.
Any comments so far? Dave?
One question, the intersection between Sam's Club and Walmart where the fuel pumps is, that area fails because of the stop signs for the aisles coming out that meet there. It's a choke point.
Mhm.
There's not gonna be any way for you guys to alter or try to change the flow there to make it a little bit more friendly for the motorists.
That's not something that we considered in this project. This is just solely the online order pickup.
My thing, like, will that increase frequency there at all with the driveway? Because you're having people shorter amount of time there and then leave. Aaron, is that something or not?
Is it the intersection? So I'm looking at the plan. Is it the intersection that you see on the right side of the plan?
No, it would be the intersection to the left where the pickup area is. It's kind of midway between them. It's where the fuel station is.
Oh, I know
When
which
it's
one you're
heavy,
talking about.
it fails in there. And my thing is now you're gonna have more people coming from both directions to utilize the pickup. I didn't know if that was something that, you guys would look at maybe, or go to Walmart and say, there was a concern expressed.
Before we stop by the.
What do you mean by failing?
People coming out, the traffic queues in that point
Mhm.
stacks at busier times of the day. And the people that are trying to come out, the four-way stop with the main east-west road there, just to the north of the fueling station, cars queue and stack toward going southbound. And then you have people trying to get out. You have traffic both ways that back up, and it creates issues.
Okay.
So I know it's not tied to this, but
Mhm.
potentially this will bring in maybe a little more, because the people are there a shorter duration.
Yeah.
I was wondering if it was something that you could go back to them and say, that the governing body had expressed a concern with that, to see if they could look at that.
I can mention it to them, but I'm not sure that they're really going to be changing the design at this point.
Yeah, it wouldn't be for that, it would be on site, I'm
But
saying.
they don't own the shopping center, right? I mean,
But they own up to, like, they own the Sam's Club, that's all still intertwined in the Walmart Corporation, correct?
I'm not positive about that. I'm not sure if that's the same property.
Hey, Dave.
They're two different entities that own it. I just pulled it up.
So then,
There's Walmart Real Estate Business Trust and Sam's Real Estate Business Trust.
okay, same thing, but so
Still in
with that,
Bentonville.
with that feeding, I know Walmart owns their specific site where the store is. With that maybe creating potentially more traffic, does that play into it at all, either Sean or Aaron, or not?
Yeah, I don't think our ordinance, the traffic impact provisions, I don't think they would specifically catch this. Now, we do have more general provisions that speak to safe traffic flow and stuff like that. So I think there may be some room to have that discussion. I think maybe if it's, acceptable to the board, we would add it as a condition for discussion with the applicant's client, and then I can engage in those discussions with them and try to come up with some solutions.
That's all, and nothing pertaining to this as
Right.
far as trying to stop it. I'm just saying, I see what occurs there. I go there
Yeah.
a fair amount, and there is, at points, it creates traffic gridlock here.
Sure, yeah,
So
yeah, I'm
that's-
happy to have that discussion with, and I can't promise that we will see any results, but as long as we can have a good discussion, we
that's
might
fine.
be able to get
Yeah,
something.
Yeah, I didn't know if he had the ability to take it back, so, okay.
Anybody have anything else? Okay, seeing none. Anything else from staff? Any public comment on this plan? All right, I'll look for a motion then with the two waivers. Those are still both valid, Aaron?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a
I'll
motion?
make a motion to approve the proposed waivers as presented
And the final plan?
and to approve the final
All
plan.
right, there's a motion on the table from Nancy. Is there a second?
Second.
Laura, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any, that motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Myers.
Thank you.
Next is 7166 Wartsville Road. This is a final subdivision plan. Gentlemen?
Good evening, Supervisors. Zane Geis with Integrated Consulting, the civil engineer of record on this plan. Also with me tonight, I have Realtor representing both the buyer and the seller here, Christian Bors, and representing the applicant here, Ramesh Bathini. So this plan is just a straightforward two-lot subdivision of the existing lot at 7166 Wartsville Road. The property in its existing conditions is bisected by Glendale Road there. This resides in the rural residential zoning district. To the north, I believe, is conservation or agriculture. Can't quite see it, but on the west side of Glendale, there's the existing residence there. There's a stream that runs through there, some wetlands, floodways, some steep slopes areas. There's no impacts being proposed to that parcel. And on the right side where the lot would be created that's subject to this plan, there are no improvements proposed at this time. And this past week, I did have correspondence with Supervisor Brown, who would forward along some information about potential preservation of the property that I shared with the realtor and the seller, and the potential buyer here. They did review that, have a discussion. They would like to still move forward with the subdivision of the property at this time, but I appreciate you sharing that information. Also, along with that, we did have extensive discussion with the Planning Commission about mainly the topic of the waivers that are being proposed as part of this plan. There are four that we are proposing at this time. And besides that, I'll come back to those. We have received comments from both the township engineer and the county and the staff at this point. We did address, or we resubmitted plans about 2 weeks ago in a discussion with Aaron here earlier. I understand that they've reviewed those and have a few very minor comments left. But largely speaking, I think the plan, most of the initial comments have been addressed at this time. As far as the waivers go, few of the view shed analysis, the final plan sheet size, there wasn't a lot of discussion there. The two that took up most of the time, the planning commission previously, one was preserving the historic building, which the particular section of the saldo that discusses is about, would be the existing residence on the west side of the property there. As I mentioned, we're not proposing any impacts or any sort of improvements, any changes whatsoever to that side of the property or the other one at this point in time. The section of that saldo requires a description and photos and some documentation of that property. We were requesting waiver of that as, again, we are totally hands off of that side of the property as part of this subdivision plan and really focusing on the generation or the subdivision of the second lot to the east of Glendale Road there. And I know there were some questions regarding about also the historic properties within the township or not. And my understanding in speaking with Scott at Planning Commission that a lot of that is on the current landowner themselves. It's voluntary on them to work with the township on those things. And I think that was discussed with the landowner as well. And then the sanitary sewer for the proposed lot is the existing lot does have existing, sanitary sewer and well on site. Given that at this time, there are no proposed improvements on lot 2 on the east side of Glendale Road, and not knowing the timeline of when any sort of future development may occur, and knowing that who's applying for this subdivision and potentially buying it also owns the lot adjacent to the east of that one, does have plans in the future to potentially consolidate those. This is the first step in that process to get to that point. But unknowing of where any sort of structure or building, any sort of access that may occur on this property at this time, we came to an agreement with I think with PC and discussions with them and Scott that we could condition that perk testing and probes would be done at any time a building permit, land development, any structure is proposed at this site, or after in the future when a potential additional sale or future sale of that land after this subdivision would occur. So at this point, I'll take any questions regarding the plan or the waivers.
Thanks, Zane. Comments or questions?
Aaron, I think Aaron was going to explain a little bit more about some of the planning commission waivers and questions that came up.
Yeah, sure. So to give you guys some background, the board historically, the board being the Board of Supervisors historically, requires all subdivided land to have perks and probes to make sure it's developable. That way, if it gets resold, someone doesn't end up buying a lot that they can't build a home on or do what they want with. That can create, downstream problems if owners come in and they say, hey, I bought some land, it wasn't perked and probed, I thought it was. Why did you let it get subdivided? So now this is kind of an interesting situation. We haven't really had a plan like this before that has requested a waiver of perks and probes essentially. So I see why they're asking for it. So my recommendation of denial is just based on past precedent. If the board would like to act on it, the PC did come up with a number of conditions to kind of add. So prior to any building permit or stormwater permit issuance, and I think prior to what I would recommend, I forget what the exact PC terminology was.
I can read it to you, Aaron.
Okay, go for it.
So the exact motion was a recommendation for approval with the condition that if any structure or building is proposed prior to approval of said structure or building must have perks and probes prior to the sale of the property to someone else.
And I would, the one thing I would recommend, and thank you for that, Scott, because what clicked in my mind after that was made, and I think it was like that night when I was laying in bed, you might want to condition the one part about the sale of the land that even before it's listed for sale, it gets perked and probed just to make sure that no one accidentally buys it. Otherwise, yeah, I think that condition would help, but ultimately it's a policy decision. And if you guys want to hold the line, grant some exceptions, totally up to you.
Thanks, Aaron.
Yep.
Nancy, were you gonna say something?
Wasn't there something about access to the side road, or there were two different, somebody was 60 feet, some was 30 feet, but
There were a few discrepancies of where the setbacks that were shown along there, just dimensionally speaking. We had revised those with the most recent submission, and nothing that in my mind that would impact this particular proposed subdivision, though.
It was just an old ordinance where they had to be a 30-foot setback. The new current up-to-date ordinance is a 60-foot. So they just updated the plan to show the actual building footprint to current ordinance.
All right. Anything else from the board? Anything from staff?
Just the one thing is on waiver number 2, and I don't want to get into it, but just the planning, I just have to notify you, the planning commission had no recommendation on waiver number 2 to the board. And then waiver number 3 was the condition that I read to you. So just so that you're aware.
Okay, thanks, Scott. If there's a will of the board, why don't we take the subdivision first and then we can work through the, go ahead.
Scott, in our zoning ordinance, there is something in there pertaining to the preservation of historic.
Yeah, so this is a Souder requirement, but yes, so the Souder requirement is that any building that's listed over 80 years old, there needs to be some type of acknowledgement letter, yada yada yada. That's kind of the way that it's always been interpreted. That's what this is pertaining to. It's just showing, it's either showing in some type of way, and I think we discussed with the planning commission. I think Zane, you said it was okay or you were going to talk to the client of just proposing some type of letter saying, yes, we acknowledge that this building is over 80 years old and that it is currently staying. And that was kind of what we discussed. The PC did not condition it on that. They decided to say that it was a no recommendation and that it was a decision for this board.
We do not approve the second waiver. They can still go through the process later.
Yeah,
on.
they would just have to provide, and you can condition, or you could say just provide if the board is acceptable to them providing a letter or a picture of it or some type of signed letter saying that they acknowledge that it's over 80 years old, then that could be fulfilled. If the board's okay with that, fulfilling
We
that
don't
requirement.
approve.
If you don't, yeah, but I would need direction that you guys would be okay with them submitting that letter and acknowledging that that meets that requirement. Or we'll need the waiver.
Why don't we take a motion on the subdivision itself, then we can work through the waivers as an idea. Is there a motion on the final subdivision plan?
I don't have that. The only thing I have is one motion. It's for the subdivision of the parcel into two separate lots
That's not here.
and then the waivers.
Sean, I think we'd still need to approve the final subdivision plan and then the waivers regardless of the agenda, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to, normally you approve the waivers, you do it all at once, or you do the waivers and then the
Yeah.
subdivision plan.
Okay. All right, let's tackle the
So,
waivers then.
You're kind of forced into that, right?
Okay, why don't we tackle the waivers? Let's look at view shed analysis. I think that one was pretty straightforward. Is there a motion on that?
Just the waivers.
Yeah,
Just
why don't we'll just work through them one by one since there was some potential conditions on 2 and 3.
All right, so if would make a motion to approve 2 of the waivers, number 1 and number 4.
Okay, we have a motion on 1 and 4. Is there a second?
Second.
Laura, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? Okay, that motion carries. We have waiver number 2, which is the historic building preservation. Anybody willing to make a motion on that one?
Would it help if I read the actual provision to you so you know exactly what the ordinance says?
Yeah.
Because it really isn't much of a requirement at all. It says for buildings that are estimated to be 80 years or older on the tract, in addition to locations as required under another section, a description and a photo of the building shall be provided. The applicant shall also describe whether the building is proposed to be maintained, changed in use, renovated, or removed. Then it says see also another section, and then it provides for the granting of a waiver. So it's really just, as Scott said, it's just providing some
Nothing
information.
waiver.
It kind of is.
It's seems pretty straightforward.
When we initially proposed this, we weren't sure to what extent, when you say description, how deep do you go into detail and whatnot. In discussions here, as Scott mentioned, I don't think we'd have an issue if it comes down to a letter to state the property does meet that 80-year mark or the existing residence, and include some pictures for the existing conditions of the property. I don't think
So you guys would withdraw it and submit the letter with a picture and just say yes.
we'll withdraw that because we've had enough discussion, I think, at this point to understand the full requirements of what that Saldo section.
All right. Thanks, Zane. Thanks, Solicitor Polk. And then the other waiver is the sanitary sewer, which Scott shared the condition that planning recommended.
I'll make a motion to approve waiver 3.
Any conditions on that, Dave?
That's conditioned
By the planning commission.
by the planning commission.
Okay, we have a motion on the table from Dave. Is there a second?
Second.
Harry, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, if any. That motion carries. And And I believe we need a motion then on the final subdivision plan.
Motion to approve the final subdivision plan.
Laura moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Nancy second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, if any. Okay, that motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Geist.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Under new business, we have a discussion on designation of Bird Town. Not sure who's going to lead that discussion.
I'll kick it off here.
Okay,
So I believe, is Cliff still in the audience? Yeah, Cliff is still here. So great. So in summary, the Conservation and Preservation Committee is requesting to join the Birdtown PA initiative and become a designated bird town in PA. Staff tonight is asking for direction from the board as a whole of whether or not to move forward with the application process, the resolution, and getting all that paperwork together. And with that, we would recognize the Conservation and Preservation Committee as that designated committee to take on this program. And Cliff understands that. So the presentation was in your packet for you guys to review. Cliff in the committee felt that you guys didn't need the big presentation tonight, but there was a very good overview provided by the organization in your packets. So Cliff's here as the committee to answer any questions, but the committee understands that it would be their sole committee's responsibility to undertake that program and kind of the goals and tasks that are associated with that.
Is that including, sorry, just real quick, just a question. Yeah, Cliff, would you guys take, they talked about a lot of certifications and trainings. Is that something that the committee would do? Is that what you mean, Tyler? Or
As
is it-
staff, that's what we would like to see is the committee.
Well, when they did the presentation to the group and I was a liaison sitting there, it was pretty much said, each individual municipality that joined us could take it as far as they want or as little as they want. There's parameters there and it's depending on how involved the municipality would like to get or the group. So there's no set standards. It's all voluntary. You can go to the 30th degree, you can go to the first degree. It's up to the individual.
Yeah, and to that clarity, as a staff member and whatnot, in talking with Cliff, like we as staff would put those expectations on the committee to be involved in that program, and staff wouldn't be involved in that program. It'd be the volunteers within the Conservation Preservation Committee to take on those goals and tasks.
Tyler, when I first heard the presentation, it was at a CAPCOG meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and they were saying there's $100 fee, and that was just one time.
Correct. That is in the memo, $100 application fee.
Five, and that's to partially cover the cost of the plaques.
Okay, yeah, that's what, during the presentation, some of the townships and boroughs asked if that was a one-time fee, and it was indicated it was a one-time fee, so. I think it's a good program.
Anybody have any comments?
No, do we vote on this or what's?
I think it's just some direction, right?
Yeah, I'm just looking for direction. I wanted to understand where the board was as a whole. I know I've heard from Supervisor Lanker and Harry on it.
I thought they told us that night that there had to be formal approval. I think it would be better for us to do it to cover Cliff going back, because I thought when they made the presentation that.
Actually, I'll read from their card. It says, Birdtown, Pennsylvania is an all-volunteer organization that provides a network and resources for municipal leaders and residents to create healthier ecological spaces where they live, learn, and work. Everyone can become an effective steward by creating more sustainable habitat and wildlife, wildlife and humans alike. And I do believe that you're right. They said it has to be approved
by resolution.
Yeah, they just wanted an official.
Yeah, so
Ratified.
yeah, they have provided us a draft resolution. We have not prepped anything because I didn't want to go putting in the energy and time to get all the application done, the resolution done without full direction from the board, right? I understand the committee's desire,
No,
but I wanted the
this is
direction from the board.
Birdtown group for it to go forward. So all we would have to do is, and I was gonna make a motion that we approve staff to, further the.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
fine. Just
That,
next
they just
month.
need to see that, is what we were told.
Okay, my understanding from talking to them is that they would want to see the resolution, which I'd bring
Yeah.
back to you guys next month.
Yeah, I was just gonna make a motion to approve staff to,
Sure, yeah.
because that was what we were made to believe.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, but just note next month there'll be a resolution on the agenda for.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve staff to further the, process for Birdtown, Pennsylvania application.
We have a motion from Dave. Is there a second?
Second.
Harry, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, if any, that motion carries. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Cliff. Next, we have Cumberland County Small Bridge Grant.
That'll be me again to kick
Got it.
that one off. Yeah. All right. So this is a new business item. So you'll see in the motion that it's upon review of the township, final review of the township solicitor and input of estimated costs by the township engineer. We're going to talk about estimated costs in the next section of the agenda. But we wanted to get the approval for the agreement now. That way, then we can just input the costs and get it signed and back to the county. So what this agreement is the county is essentially awarding us $200K to go towards the Cost Road Culvert project. To accept that $200K, we need to have this agreement in place. But in the agreement, we also have to supply estimated costs. And we don't know what we're doing with the estimated costs until later on in this agenda. So that's why we're approving the agreement to accept the $200K, knowing that we're going to be inputting the estimated costs here by the end of tonight. If that makes sense.
Okay.
Some.
Questions on that? I'll look for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve Cumberland County Local Small Bridge Program Grant Funding Agreement upon final review, the township solicitor and input of estimated project costs from the township engineer.
Dave moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Harry, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, if any, that motion carries. Next, we have a discussion on virtual meetings. I think we all saw the request. I don't know, Ray, did you want to add anything?
No, I believe there was a memo submitted, well, not really a memo submitted. We wanted to get the board's perspective. We have sought their input about it. And Scott can add a little bit of more because he is directly has spoken to both the PC and the ZHB.
Yeah, so just to add on, I'll start with the planning commission. So as the board's aware, a resident asked that the board seek virtual participation in meetings at both the planning commission and the zoning hearing board. I went to both of those boards and commissions to ask for their opinion. The request came after the PC agenda went out, so their official vote will be in February. However, Chairman Brown says that he anticipates them to hold to a no on this request on the virtual meetings as they have historically. But an official vote will come in February. Also, for zoning hearing board, it did go to their agenda. Chairman Franklin is here. However, in that meeting, the zoning hearing board stated that the zoning hearing board is not opposed to transparency and public participation. However, they are not in favor of virtual meetings for participation for zoning hearing board hearings. So it's a no from zoning hearing board and an unofficial no from planning commission. So I just want to report that back to the board so that it can be in the minutes that request was, acted upon, and we did bring it before them.
Okay, thanks, Scott.
Clarence, is this?
Clarence, you wanted to add something?
I did, as I often do. There are a few of us that wind up going to these meetings a lot. And I think part of the reason is that they're important meetings. We learn a lot from it. And I actually have a great amount of respect for the members of both the Planning Commission and Zoning Hearing Board. In fact, so much I'd really like to see more people come to these kind of meetings to see what goes on. And actually, I think that would cut down on some of the griping that residents have as far as what goes on within a township. That won't happen though if we don't open it up. Sometimes at a zoning hearing board, there might be 2 or 3 people in the audience, and it just shouldn't be that way. I don't know if there'd be more people that would show up at these by way of Zoom, but if we don't, I'm sure there won't be. So again, a great amount of respect for both those boards and everything they do. But I would like to see it opened because even I can't make it to all the meetings, and occasionally when I can't, I would still like to see what was going on. So there may be others out there who also show up at a lot of these meetings, may want to say something about it. But that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thanks, Clarence.
Thinking on that, when we were doing Zoom, when we had COVID, and I was wondering how many people really tuned in to those meetings. Don, do you have a guess of how many people tuned in?
Don Franklin, outside of the people actually making the request before the board, maybe 1 or 2 others that are just tuning in to see what was going on. It was an extremely limited amount of people that actually participated on those.
Sean, I have a question for you. In Don's group, the zoning hearing board, is it still permissible for someone to do for like either testimony in that virtual, or do they need to be there?
That's up to the parties in the board to decide.
So a party in the, say one of the applicants, they could say no and.
Yeah, and the board has final authority on that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, there are times at zoning hearing board meetings where the documents we look over are actually in a fairly dynamic state. So we'll get, the township does a great job getting the packets out to us well in advance of the meeting. Usually have them a month before. It is not unusual for an applicant to come in and provide new documents, some of which Scott may not even have to put up on the screen. So it's fairly fluid, fairly dynamic. And to be honest with you, the deliberations and the discussions just flow and go so much better with the people actually in the room to be there and to interact. Now, in the statement that Scott read, where we are open and to transparency, we absolutely mean that. We are open to transparency. And if we were told we had to go to Zoom, we would have no problem opening it up to a listen only. But at this point, the board has made it very clear, and it was a unanimous 5-0 vote, that in order to participate, in other words, provide testimony or input, the request would be that people be there in person. So that's where a little background for that statement we have there. That's the official position of the zoning hearing board. Obviously, if we are directed to do otherwise by the Board of Supervisors, we will of course comply. So that's where we stand on that.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you.
And for planning commission, again, their official vote is not until February, but Chairman Brown did say that most likely they will adhere to, they've been asked multiple times to do it. They want no part of it. Most of them feel as though that if it is a scenario where you have an issue or a question, things in your lives can be moved because they are volunteers and they move things in their lives to come to those meetings. So that's historically been their position.
Yeah, and I can remember during the PC, like during COVID, there wasn't a lot of people that would be online. It was mostly shoot and go pretty much. And that was just by the board itself, and maybe a couple people online would talk about some issues, but
yeah, not during COVID, just as Chairman Franklin said, for PC going through COVID, there weren't as many Zoom participants there. I mean, right now I can tell you there's right now for this Zoom, there's 8 of us on here, and Willetta and I are 2 of them. So just
congratulations.
just so you know.
Scott, I hear that. I don't think it's not just moving stuff. We have a lot of young families, right? I'm just rebutting the argument. I don't mean to address you specifically, Scott, but
I hear you.
I feel like at least a listen only would make sense. I don't know that I hear what they're saying that, yeah, we move stuff, but at the same time, there could be somebody who would like to listen or participate with two kids who has no choice to move stuff, can't find it, right?
Yeah,
So,
and I get that. I'm just historically that has been the PC's position,
yeah.
and they have felt very strongly with that for the 6 years
I'm
I've
not
been here.
hearing just not hearing strong arguments. We have the technology, we invested in it. I can't see why we would want to at least limit participation in that way. Go ahead, Dave.
The concern I have is like, say in Don's instance, somebody thinks I can get in, interact, and then they want to testify. They can't, and then they use that as an excuse to complain, I didn't have my
Yeah,
due, like.
I think testifying is a different, I agree with that.
Or,
Yeah.
you know, like, like, I've had the opportunity once or twice to come in, and if there's something that you know, feel adamant about that you want to come in and have them hear that. Like, if somebody's under the misconception that they're, like, it'd be like the board meetings where it's interactive, then like, I just don't, like, I don't know how we handle that for them especially because of, you know,
Yeah, I
the
understand.
complexity of what they deal with. Now, the planning commission, you know, to a degree, the same people can make comments, so that would be my hard part. I understand both sides of the fence and I do agree with it. I just don't wanna put either the people on the zoning hearing board or the planning commission in the middle where people say they didn't get their due because of not being able.
I'd like to, if I could, to speak, I'm 100% behind having Zoom for planning commission and zoning hearing board. I absolutely believe in being transparent. I think it's a wonderful idea, provided that we have staff who's able to man the computer to do that. That's my opinion. Now, things like testifying at zoning hearing board or an applicant for a planning commission, absolutely, they should be there in person unless there's some kind of extenuating circumstance, like they're stuck on a road in the middle of a snowstorm or something. But I mean, they should be there in person, but I think as residents, why wouldn't we want more participation? So I think absolutely that we should allow participation. That's my opinion.
Thanks, Laura. Nancy, you want to comment?
Well, this brings me to my thought on us doing this with the board and opening that up to the public. We started this because of COVID, and we don't have COVID anymore. And there's, to me, not a good, I don't have a problem with people watching Zoom or streaming this meeting and seeing it. But I do have a problem with people commenting when they don't come here. And that's, I think, what Mr. Franklin was talking about, that if you want to participate, you should come here. I mean, I personally think that we should take a look at how we do this and the reason why we started it. And if you have something that you want to say, then you should come. That's just my opinion.
Carl, can I just add one more thing?
Go ahead.
So I will say this. So another conversation I had with some of the PC members was that if the board does require the PC and zoning hearing board to do it, their probable request will be that every single committee that we have has to do the exact same thing for transparency, and that everybody will have to have the recordings up. Because if it's fair for planning commission and just for zoning hearing board where there are more controversial, then every single committee should have to do it at all times.
I'm not sure. I don't mean to diminish some of the committees, but I think the most impactful things happen with.
Yeah, I'm just
I'm talking to the board too. Yeah, I didn't mean to keep. I'm not trying to argue with you directly.
No, I just we're talking about transparency, and I think those two boards and commissions would like transparency across every single committee that's there.
Okay.
Thing to remember, 5 of us up here, you know, Nancy, Carl, myself, and Harry were here during the pandemic. There was, if I exclude you, Laura, wasn't intentional. Don't make a federal case out of it. I've been saying, I knew that us four for sure. But if you remember, sometimes two people would talk even amongst board members, it would pick one of the two that Zoom would, and the other person didn't know they were heard. I worry about with the dynamics of that, if like somebody thinks they're speaking, the other person doesn't hear because of that. And especially in their case, that's similar to a court of law. Somebody doesn't feel like if we have it interactive, their testimony is not heard because say somebody cut over them and they don't know what they said was important was heard. I have to agree that like if we're gonna do it, it can't be for people either testifying or giving input because if there is that problem, then you know, people don't know they're being heard.
Hmm.
It happened to us on the board.
It's kind of three options on the technical side, right? So there's the option we have here today, which is you can have Q&A, interaction, et cetera, virtual and in person. The other one is to have in person and streaming only, which is where you can watch anything, but you don't have the opportunity to Q&A, but you can watch it. Kind of like a TV station. If anybody here has ever seen it, you turn it on and you listen to it. It's a potential option. And then the other option is you must come in person and there is no streaming and there is no Q&A interaction, so to speak. So, I mean, I did a quick, from a board of supervisor, not a planning and a zoning. You know, I did a quick survey today. And 4 of the other municipalities do in-person streaming only. Okay, so you can always listen to it. We happen to be one of the more, I lack of words, progressive, where we allow Q&A live interaction during a meeting.
Well, I think some of those municipalities did the same thing that we did. They Zoomed originally, but now they've backed off of that. and
Yeah, they have.
jumped
So they,
to the
you know, they want to stream, so they want people to be at least observe, but you don't have the input to call in. You can't interject. You can't do all the above. And I think Hampton made it clear too that you can't testify. You can't do any of that. You basically turn your TV on between the hours of blank. It starts and you listen to it. And then when it's over, it's over. There's no chatting option. You can come in person or you can stream it. So, you know, in front of the board here is certainly what Scott identified from what he heard from both Chairman Franklin and then, of course, Chairman Brown. But I wanted to differentiate for the crowd about the 3 kind of different options, right? And we're currently at the 3rd option where we allow that. And so the board, whether it's tonight or it's another time, if they want to consider to in-person and stream, that's an option the board has as opposed to the others. But I think we all know some people may think, well, geez, now I feel like you're shutting me out. I mean, let's just be open here.
No, we're not shutting. you
Nobody
out.
is.
You, if you want to say something,
Yep.
you have to come here. I mean, just that
Yep.
simple.
I think streaming is a good idea. The only problem, like for New Kingstown, when they have a meeting, do they meet here where you can stream it, or do they meet at the Fair Company in New Kingstown? Is there availability to stream up there?
We streamed.
Oh, you can.
We streamed from there for multiple public hearings. But again, I'm just giving you what I have a feeling is going to come from PC. They're going to say, if we're being transparent and fair, make it across the board for every single committee we have.
Just to rebut that, I mean, New Kingstown isn't recommending on, I mean, maybe they'll have opinions on plans when they come as individuals, but I mean, they're not making recommendations on ordinance
They
changes.
make a
and things.
lot of big decisions there.
Well,
You have no idea.
Well,
I hear you on that. But
well,
Well, Tyler and Cheryl are carrying those for a couple of years right now.
I'm not,
And they've done a great job with it,
Important
Tyler.
discussions. I don't by any means mean to say otherwise. I'm just, we're
There's a
not
lot-
looking at rezones and things like that.
Yeah, but there's a lot of things that Kathy brings up
I know.
that's very important.
All right, we had I think some public comment on this. I think JL, you were first. If you could come up, we have people online, if you don't mind.
This is for Scott. How difficult would it be to put a banner on the top or the bottom of the streaming, say participation by attendance only?
We would just have to create it. We just create a scene, but what we would do is we would just have it on the agenda. We would have it at the top of the agenda, just like I think on this one. Do we still have the disclaimer stuff? So the top of the agenda, where it says, this meeting will be recorded. We could put something here, comma, streaming. If the board decides on the streaming aspect, we would put something with streaming is available. However, participation by digital or virtual is not available. We could do something like that, but yeah, I mean, we could put that on as many agendas that in committees we have.
Glenn, come on up.
Real quick on the transparency side, and I know Harry and Chris will probably back me up on this. The emergency management discusses some stuff that is not for public knowledge, some of our response plans and stuff like that. So I think you really need to tread a little bit lightly on this. I understand the transparency, but some of the stuff that we discuss isn't for public knowledge.
You're right.
That's true.
Your committee wasn't brought up. Other committees were. Yeah.
Come on.
Lawrence Boucher from Southfield Cross. I keep forgetting to do that. I truly do understand why it's important for us to be here in person. I've made a personal commitment to do that as much as I can for some of the major boards and even some of the minor boards that are out there. But nonetheless, even I can't make all the boards. I do have travel to do, and it would be nice to be able to maintain a continuity with what's going on by being able to track it. And so even someone that tries to be here all the time can't be here all the time. And I would really appreciate if we would have this as a opportunity for us. And just for the record, I'm not the person that asked to have this done. I don't know who it was, but I think it's a good idea.
Thanks, Clarence.
I think Glenn brought up a good thing, the emergency management. There are plans that they go through, some very important stuff that maybe should stay within the committee itself or the people that attend the committee. I know it's not open to the public right now, and streaming would probably not be good. So I tend to agree with what Glenn's saying.
Yeah, Harry, just to piggyback off that, they're not a public meeting that is advertised.
Right.
So this would be for committees that have advertised public meetings, and that's what the PC has requested. And I think zoning hearing board, I don't want to speak for Chairman Franklin, but I would assume they would want all the committees to have to do the same thing if they're being forced to do so.
Tom Martin, Brook Meadow Drive. I would be an advocate for streaming. I think that that level of transparency is appropriate. The Q&A could probably not work very well. And to Mr. Lenker, yeah, that something may get lost. Yet when we learned this past summer about the warehouse that was being proposed behind us, my wife and I went to the Planning Commission meeting. Now, if you remember, that was very, very well attended. And we actually had WGAL show up, which was gratifying. But the Planning Commission found it appropriate to reprimand us, telling us that if you had come here for all the meetings, you would know about this. Now you show up and the TV station has shown up. Had you done that, they wouldn't be here. I bristled at that. And I won't even go into why, it's obvious. But when I go back to my original comment, that's why in a time-poor society that we live in, I think it's only appropriate with the technology that we have, with ease of it, with a long 2.5-hour agenda. It would be so easy for us to participate, observing. That's what I want to watch. I need to know about that part of the agenda, not the 2.5 hours that I must do. So I can't even come up with a reason not to do it. And that's my say. Please really consider that level of transparency. Thank you.
Thank you.
Adrian Garcia, 27 Maple Drive. I come to these meetings because it's 5 minutes from my house. If it were much further, I probably wouldn't attend. And most nights I almost wish I didn't attend because not much happens, not much that pertains to me at least. It takes almost no effort to stream these meetings to the public, so why don't we? And if the ask is that all committees do this, then why don't we? That seems like a no-brainer to me, that we get more people interested in our local government. Somehow, my company is entirely online. We hold meetings with 20+ people, and there isn't any crosstalk. If we can do it, anyone can do it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. All right, should we try to get to a consensus here?
I'm just gonna have one last thing
Go ahead, Scott.
because, so historically, when this was brought up, PC members, especially because PC was hit the hardest, some of them, I'm not gonna say who, but some of them did say that if they were forced to go to, if this was forced and only on them, there might be a potential that a lot of open seats on planning commission would be open. So I just want you to understand that. And, there have been other scenarios that, people are recording these online and sending them back to PC members or other members saying, I know what you said during this, and we're going to compute it to this. I'm just letting you know what they're saying. Again, their official votes in February, but historically they will say no. And I know Chairman Franklin's going to have something to say about this as well.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. That was actually a hot topic when we were deliberating going online or not, was the fact, and because we have 2 attorneys on the zoning hearing board, one of whom does Zoom calls with defendants every day. But the issue that somebody could record this, and this could even be the case with this meeting here, and this might be a case of just being overly concerned where we shouldn't be, but somebody could record it. Somebody could creatively edit it, put words in our mouth. And that was a legitimate concern. I did ask our solicitor whether the Pennsylvania law regarding two-party consent would come into play here, and was advised that most likely it did not. So that eliminated that as far as a defense. So again, as you deliberate, that is a legitimate concern. It sounds like it's a legitimate concern from the Planning Commission. It is a legitimate concern from the Zoning Hearing Board as well. As I said, if we are told we need to stream, that is fine. We would prefer it to be listen only. Again, we have no issue with the transparency, but the concern about, being recorded and somebody having malicious intent with that recording is a concern. So, thank you.
Thanks, Don.
Thanks, Don. Sounds as if we don't have full agreement here on anything, and planning hasn't really weighed in on this officially,
Yeah,
right?
they have, well, I'm gonna hold that comment. I'm leaning towards streaming.
Unofficial
I'm leaning
vote
towards
on the request.
streaming, and if the compromise is for all committees, I can get behind that.
I'm not for all committees.
All public, let me clarify,
Like
all
the
publicly
CUP,
advertised, yeah, right.
Like anyway, I'd be for it because I think that's a undue burden on the staff
I
to
don't-
have to come to do every.
I agree. I don't like
Especially
yeah.
off-site. I say, the main, if we're gonna do it, everybody have to be agreeable for those committees would be Planning Commission, Zoning Hearing Board, but I would like to hear what they come back as the official word before I make a decision.
I think we know where that's headed, right, Scott? Threats to quit.
Yeah, I mean,
those are.
No, that was a historic comment made
Okay.
that was made. So that's what I'm just, again, Chairman Brown said historically they've said no, and they're going to stick to historic comments made. And one of the historic comments made was that if it wasn't transparent across all publicly advertised regular scheduled meetings, that you may lose commissioners.
Or do you know, Scott, is that listen only or participation or?
All digital. They
both?
want
Okay.
they want no digital.
I'm really surprised to hear that come
That's
from.
historically, again, they haven't
Okay.
officially voted. Historically, they have said no
Okay.
to that, even going back to, when the infancy of this with Chairman Rickey at the time. So it's been a hard no for them for years.
I would actually like to hear their explanation at the next PC meeting. It is on the agenda, you said?
Yes, we're adding it.
Okay, so I would like to hear their explanations, but I find that kind of hard to grasp myself.
We've discussed it before with them, so it's historic comment.
All right, so do we want to wait for that discussion?
Yeah,
If we can revisit it?
and then as we get that discussion, I think also, wherever the board lands, maybe it's also a decision at the time, how the board wants to manage this, if they want to go to a in-person / streaming. So it might be a comprehensive decision, but for now, let's wait to see what PC says.
All right, everybody okay with that?
Is everybody good?
We'll revisit it, okay.
As it stands now, officially zoning hearing boards a no. For,
Listen only, I think.
this would want to hear your.
We would certainly go with listen only, but the preference on the board right now is that we not go digital. So we would be a no.
Thank you.
All right, Aaron, we'll go to engineering update.
Yeah, last meeting, you didn't hear much from me. This one, unfortunately, you're gonna hear a lot, so we'll get to it. Starting with Cost Road. So, to recap on this project, we started pre-engineering on this internally here at the township, maybe a year or two ago. And, the goal was to have a complete bid-ready package so that the county, when they would put together their bridge bundle package, as they've been doing in the past, could include ours in there. Unfortunately, the county has decided not to go that route as they've done in the past. My understanding is that the county now is offering funds to localities and other governments to do it themselves. And in that funding, it was $200,000 essentially that was offered. So knowing that it's $200,000 and it's not going to be bundled, and the county's not going to lead the effort, we didn't know if there were any budgetary concerns from the board that you may want us to change course. So that's why it's here.
I have a question.
Go for it, Dave. Yeah.
Can we put the bridges in? I know that they changed the angle, they skew and.
Yeah, right.
Utilize, do temporary roadway to get it, to use the old road and do the road improvements.
Like at a future date and rip up.
2 years down.
Move it.
I understand costs don't go down, but we can spread that out
Right.
instead of doing it at once.
I think that's possible. I don't have exact costs for you tonight to discuss, exactly what that would be. It would,
Our staff could do temporary roadway.
you're right.
So we can keep.
I would
costs
assume
down.
so. Yeah. So,
So we would do a rip and replace, right?
Yeah.
Staff would do remove and replace.
Yeah, so it'd be the option one that had been provided via Aaron,
yeah.
which is the culverts only by township staff. 890K is the estimated.
But I want to make my feeling would be that's predicated upon it being able.
Right. To be transferred over when we want to move the road
Well,
then.
to do temporary roadway work that does not create an issue until, but I want the bridges skewed that it can be done the correct way.
Right, right.
So we have to, I think you could take some of the curves out and put temporary roadway in
Mhm.
and alleviate that.
Yeah, yeah.
traffic pattern.
I think that's likely. So I would like to double check with the design team on it, but in the past, things like that have been possible. So, yeah, if that would be the board's wish, it would be option one. And then I would just make sure to confirm with the design team.
Just to clarify, you would actually reposition the culverts then when you come back to
The
the.
angle of them.
Okay.
Yeah, you can either do one of two things. So, right now, our current design anticipating with the county bridge bundle was to literally move the road like 30, 40 feet to the east. Now, we could still do that. You could lift the culverts, move them over 30 to 40 feet, put that down. Or you could, like Dave was saying, have it set so that when they're set now in 5-10 years, we can scoot it a little bit and realign the road kind of in place.
And that's not gonna damage it. Maybe the first option would if you're or maybe neither will. It's
They
not,
shouldn't
not a
damage
real
the
risk.
culverts.
Okay,
No,
all right.
but Aaron, we could still put them where they need to be and do temporary roadway.
Yep.
And then quasi abandon the old part and then use the old part in between as much as we can till we get to that stage we figure. I'd like to see how much is involved in that before I commit, but I think the other thing that could be done in 2 phases and we could utilize staff to do a lot of the rock removal and stuff with mechanical means and keep costs down when we do that. And it might take 2 separate years, but do the one half and do the other half. I think there's a way to do that to keep the costs down to a minimum since we're not getting a lot of money. But I do agree, I don't think it behooves the township to let those pipes the way they are. They're accelerating. We're gonna end up with
Right.
an issue like we have at Hemp Road.
Yeah.
Or if there is a collapse, I mean, that's utilized by the farmer right there, Andy Souter, who runs a lot of heavy 80,000 pound trucks, moving grain, et cetera. I don't want to impact him. He's in between both of them,
Right.
his driveway.
Yeah.
So he's currently using the current road, which I'm not saying it's an optimum road. What we can do though is kind of what that proposal was, is remove and replace those culverts and put them in the correct angle for future roadway work. And so I think from a timing perspective, if we can get the board, if again, not assuming, if the board is okay with that, we can start to get the documents together and we can come back with the board with real
Sure.
cost.
And
Yeah.
well, in the south side, there shouldn't be a lot of issue with rock removal, where we're gonna have the bigger end of the project is
Yeah.
on the north
Agreed.
there by Mr. Cost between Albert, well, his
Senior and
dad
junior, yeah.
and Bert, the son.
Yeah.
There were the old farmhouses. That's where, that's the big project. And I think we could do the bottom half correctly,
Hmm.
tie in, and it would just be the upper part where we have
To maybe relocate.
the bigger project, yes.
Yeah.
Do it
So,
two-
so what I just want to understand, that sounds like a different project than number one.
Not really.
I want to get clarity.
Yeah, it would be, so number one was just put them in place and only have them set as needed for that specific purpose. If we want to have the culverts designed in a way that they can be reused or retrofitted or whatever for a future realignment, I'm gonna make this number up, so don't hold me to it, but it might add 10 to 20% to the cost, but it still would allow you then to phase those costs rather than do it all at once.
But I would want them in the correct location, and by far, I think we can do that at a significant savings to the taxpayer.
Understood.
Utilizing in-house forces. It might take us a couple years to get especially the northern part done. But it could be done, I think, in-house. That's a good project for them.
So I think
Go ahead.
my
Go ahead.
question there, Aaron, is
It's mine too. Go ahead.
with the road realignment, we were shifting the culverts almost 40 to 50 feet.
Correct, yep.
If we were to put the new culverts in that area, wouldn't we be forced to do the road as well because we're shifting
You only have, we can utilize the old section in between where the roadway lines up.
yeah, but we're shifting the culverts eastward, and that ravine's going to become more of an issue with the road.
And we're going to find ourselves starting to do a road realignment.
You understand what I'm talking about, Aaron?
I may. I want to make sure I do. Can you tell us your vision from scratch, maybe?
We could do the south culvert,
Mm-hmm.
tie the road in to the old point. The upper portion, we could do temporary roadway, leave utilize the old section, take out some of the curve by filling in the radius between the north, south, east, west portion to get that road there. And then, that would give us a temporary road to do a lot of the work where the permanent site goes then.
So, to make sure I understand correctly, southern culvert essentially would be replaced, or, would be removed and replaced kind of where it is, but allowing for future alignment
I
if
don't think
needed.
that one was moving as much as the other one.
Correct. That one, even in our most extreme design, was maybe like 10 feet.
We could do that. And there's not much roadway work there.
Right. And then,
We could construct the new road and not tie in, do that ahead of time, and then remove the old road when we do the box culverts. You understand what I'm talking about?
But I'm understanding what the vision is, but what we're ultimately doing is replacing one culvert and already starting to do the road realignment, and then later adding the second culvert.
Yeah, but we can do the road in between at the northern area ahead of time.
Scott, could you pull it up on?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I'm worried about is we have a
Is-
bend into a sharper bend into a bend. It becomes like a,
That gets removed when the new bridge goes in. We're gonna do the new portion ahead of time. And then all we'd have to do is where the tie into the existing.
I'm gonna go and grab it.
Yeah, so I want to just share from staff's perspective. We know that the culverts have to be replaced. Nobody here is disagreeing there. I also think as a board, we have to be sensitive to the fact that even if it takes over 3 years to replace 2 culverts and then do the road realignment, we're at a $2+ million project. And we can replace the culverts now, staff can do it, and be ready for sometime down the road, defined by whenever, to do the road realignment. We could do those culverts next year, now, and then look at a road realignment later. And my concern is, we're gonna ultimately in 2 years spend the $2 million, and I'm not sure that's what we're wanting to do.
So Dave, essentially southern culvert, replace it essentially in kind, but enough that if we needed to realign the road, we could do it. And then northern culvert, did you see doing that here, or did you see putting it in the spot we have it now?
Will they allow us under permit to put the new one in, let the old one in? Utilize the old road, do the road, then we abandon, remove the old.
I see what you're saying. So essentially phase 1 would be here.
That would get done there.
Phase 2 would be put a culvert here while people continue to use this.
And then we do the road work, we abandon the old part.
And then
tear it
phase
out, so
3
there's
would
no
be the
road closure.
realignment and
Yeah,
abandonment.
there's no road closure at that point. We can minimize road closure.
but would we be doing both culverts at the same time?
Because we would-
The culvert's gonna sit till we abandon, we'll utilize.
I see what you're saying now.
Yeah.
That was not clear. So
Yeah,
you're
no,
saying
I get it now.
It's
you
a-
build you build the south one completely.
Yeah.
The north one you just put there, but don't do a road connection to it.
And we utilize the old pipes till we get the roadway built, utilize.
Yeah,
Takes us
so-
another year.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I would just encourage the board to also think about what Ray just said, as well as if we do that, and then there's other projects in the township that take priority, how long is that culvert going to be sitting out there on its own little island until we get back to finishing this project?
And no disrespect, Aaron, but you do great work, but you're gonna have to do more engineering.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, in the end, and please don't take this wrong, it's not a cheap engineering.
No, I'm
And I just-
totally
Engineering,
understood.
Regardless if a contractor does it or staff does it, the engineering has to be done by them.
True, but there's not as much engineering to just place the culverts now than to do a project that may have 2 or 3 moving parts.
You won't be, they'll know what the final engineering, the grades will be there, what they need to meet the specifications. But then the final work up above to the north of the second culvert, that can be done a year and a half down the road. The issue would be that our staff can make that the project that year. We'll have the curbs done this year. That's off our books. We let paving sit for 1 year and this is our project. And then the following year, we get a bunch ready. That gives us either money to bank that we do a bigger paving project, usually we get a better price on it. But it also gives them a chance when this project's done to prep the stuff for the following year.
No, and I respect that thought process, Dave, but I think we're also forgetting some other major projects that we're coming up on, you know, Woods Drive, State Road, Texaco, and like we just have to prioritize what projects are the most important for the township as a whole.
Yeah, based on the traffic flow,
We already
traffic amount.
We already kicked Woods one year down the road where we could have done something here this year, potentially. If we have to kick things one year and we utilize our staff in-house, we're buying this equipment that they've saved us.
I'm not arguing
I
that.
know,
Nope, I'm not arguing that
I
at
don't
all.
think the board's ever pushed, if something sits one year, but like, to me, these pipes, I think, Aaron, they're.
Do you prioritize these pipes more than Woods Drive?
We have a year, we have right of way work there to do and everything. That might not be ready, especially if we have to move utility poles.
Okay.
It took, we have one down.
What about the Public Works building?
Our staff's not doing that.
I understand, but there's still a cost associated to these projects. I'm not arguing. I'm throwing out these
But I will
like
tell you,
realistic things that we're facing here.
we had a project where I work where the utility poles, it's been 2.5 years, are still sitting. We paved up.
I understand,
to them,
yeah.
and it's setting. Like the utility company, if we have any work like that involved on Woods Drive, that could push that out to.
Understood.
I think the question in front of the board is really this. Dave, nobody is the priority on this section of the township as high as the others, number one. And number two, when this project is done, call it 1, 2, 3 years, do we want to understand that the tab at the end is going to be $2 million? And that's really the question in front of the board. Do you see this as a $2 million project? And we have to be open about it. It's going to be a $2 million project. And
Ray, you have right here culverts plus road realignment. Township installs culvert plus bid of road construction, 1.5. So that's with the contractor doing the road work. So if we're doing it in-house, we still should change.
just for the record, the 890 was in-house, so that's 900K already.
I'm reading.
Aaron?
the memo
Yeah,
right
so
now.
there's 4 options. The first 2 are culvert only. So I believe.
Yes.
And then the second 2 are culvert plus road. Option 3, going off memory here, I could walk back, but I
Culvert
won't.
plus road
Yeah, would be
1.5.
yeah, that one is staff doing southern culvert, northern culvert over here, and then bidding out the road work to get it all done. So 1.5 now, given time, maybe some inflation. At 2 million, I think, is if we bid the whole thing.
Plus the engineering, which is right now around 380,000.
Yeah,
but the
I did-
engineering is $250,000 to $300,000.
I did not include the engineering in that, correct?
Like this says, they've done a cost analysis to bid the road construction. If we can probably shave that price down probably 250,000 more if they do the preparation for the contractor to come in and do the paving. If it takes us 2 years to do it, we get the bridges in, we utilize the old ones. The following year, they can get that ready and they can still probably do another project.
So
yeah, so listen, from the public works end, right? We'll execute whatever the board direction is, right? We're just looking for guidance because I feel like between the engineering team, HRG, and public works staff, and understanding where we're at now with the county program the county program's not
As lucrative as that.
yeah,
that
as
they
lucrative
had
as
hoped.
what we thought, right? We're looking for guidance of where is the board's appetite for this project, and we need to finalize this direction.
Yeah, to get the 200 from the grant.
Because these culverts
Yeah.
are 2 to 3 years. They need to be replaced.
So I think really, if I can summarize, maybe this will help. I think really the options between staff, board, and everything are really option 1, which is just replace both culverts in kind, or a modified version of option 3, which is
1.5.
yeah, 1.5 million, which is culvert here year 1, culvert here year 2, roadway maybe year 3, 4, 5,
I
whatever.
think Dave's suggesting some savings there by, you're saying Dave's staff preparing beforehand for. the
Yeah, so
contractor,
if
right?
if the staff comes in over, let's say culvert 1 is in, culvert 2 is in, and it's year 3, staff comes in, chips out all this stone, prepares the grade, it could come down to 1.2 million. I see what you're saying, Dave.
You're asking a specific question. What's the appetite, right? If, yes, I can get on board if we can get that done for 1.1, 1.2. I start to kind of get off the train when we get to 2 million, right? We're starting to get
But if we do
out.
it in-house, we're probably around 1, 2, and that all depend on how hard the rock is there. and what-
Right.
But it takes them 2 years to do that
Yeah.
prep work in there. I think we have that time with the old bridges, and then that way we save probably $800,000
So,
off of this.
and I'll say on the engineering, because that is an expensive cost. This is not a simple project. If we would go with, I'll call it phased option 3, here, and then years 3 through 5 do the road. Our engineering won't change much because that's what our design currently actually is for. What would change mostly is just the approach to bidding versus whatever. We might have to take a different approach to that, which could add a few $1,000s, but the overall engineering shouldn't change with option 3. Modified 3, I'll call it.
As long as you guys don't have to go back to
And
permit.
and Tyler.
As long as we don't have to.
Go back through permit.
Yeah, so we actually, the permit hasn't even hasn't been approved by DEP at this point. So we'll have to double check. I have done it in the past where you leave an existing obstruction, they're called per DEP, in place for a year or 2.
Okay.
So I can't promise it. DEP is always changing their interpretations, but we've done it in the past.
The other thing too is if, say, we have another project that jumps in, that could be done in winter. That's good winter work for them to go in there with mechanical means and break that rock out.
I got you.
Sit
Yeah.
in the cave.
I'm not
Yeah.
saying we're not
Oh, no,
willing
no,
to
no.
do that. I hope you know that.
Like,
Yeah.
It don't have to be done in construction season.
Yeah.
That's a good winter job where they're sitting in a cab, or you can give guys operator time on them breakers and
Yeah.
they can go through there and we can get it close to grade.
Okay.
Then that way, springtime,
Yeah.
it's close to ready to go. By no means, I won't ask you guys to do anything. I don't think they have the aptitude.
We'll go out with pickaxes if we have
Yeah.
to. Hey, so Aaron, do you
Yeah.
feel comfortable enough then to put those estimated costs into the agreement that we need to submit to county then?
The other thing too is in Dave, and I'm much clearer on your idea. We do have to then obviously seek the landowners right away and acquisition of right away.
Yeah, Aaron and I and Tyler was involved. We have buy-in from both of the landowners.
Yeah. I need to touch base with you on that because I've been trying to get a hold of the one party and I don't know if he's just been on vacation or not.
Andy,
No, the young
Albert?
Albert.
He might have went away. 'Cause
Yeah,
This is their
yeah.
off season.
Well, there's some side note. There's some good news where Fish and Boat wants to actually invest in that whole stream for
Right.
him and redo it. So I've been trying to get a hold of him on it.
I can get a hold of them.
Yeah.
So,
We could have a meeting with them again.
essentially, I think what we need direction on is kind of 2 things, but they relate to this. So option 1, replace the culverts in kind, or option 2, take the design we have for realignment and spreading it out as let's say a 5-year project.
But you're still gonna put the second culvert where it
Yeah.
Yeah,
will
we're gonna
eventually.
sit it
Exactly
while
right.
we have the crane there. We might as well do both.
That's what I'm,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't want us to come back another year to put the crane back up.
Yeah.
No, you set it and forget it.
Yeah.
Spread it out, Aaron, but bring what we can in-house
In-house,
as well.
yeah.
We'll knock
So
the
it's up
cost
to you.
rate.
I'll execute whatever
Yeah.
you guys decide.
So what you're gonna propose for us, Aaron,
Mhm.
is we're gonna set those 2 culverts correctly. We're gonna set those 2 culverts in the right location, possibly this year.
I don't think it'll be
Yeah,
done this year.
26?
2027.
I would say, based on permitting,
26
if we don't
probably?
have to bid the culverts, we may be able to get the culverts in this
2026.
year. Even possibly this year. Those permits take 6 to 9 months. So
I don't know what Public Works, let's say 26 to be safe.
Yeah, 26, okay.
Yeah, so, get both culverts in 26. They're
Yep.
100-year culverts.
Yep.
They'll last for a long time. Take a few years to prep the grade and stuff for the new road, and then let's say years 3 through 5 at some point, bid out the actual construction of the roadway.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
well, bid out the paving.
Correct, yeah.
Have them put the stone sub base in or get it close to grade, have
Yeah,
whoever
just, yeah.
verify grade.
And that, so
Yeah.
that's option 3, is that
Yeah.
what everyone would agree on then? Because honestly, from an engineering standpoint, that actually saves the most money because we have not designed a culvert for the northern one in its current location. So,
Yeah. So, I hear what you're saying. I'm with it now. Thank you for all the clarity.
yeah, same here.
What does the rest of the board feel?
I shared.
I'm actually wondering why we can't just replace the culverts. I'm not sure I'm understanding the road realignment. I think State Road and Texaco Road, we've been talking about those curves. That's a higher priority to me than this road realignment. I guess I'm just not getting that part. I know the culverts are in bad shape and they need replaced, but I'm not really seeing all the benefit to realigning. If someone could explain it to me.
Doesn't meet the current standard. There is Andy Souter had a tractor get the axle snapped off at that curve because somebody came around it and his operator had to veer into the fence row because of the fact that the tractor was oversized and he didn't want to hit the car. So we tout that we're all for the farmer. We're trying to make it safer for the motoring public and the farmer itself. The other issue is, as time goes on, at one time Woods Drive was like this road. There was, and JL probably could tell you, when he first moved in there, that road was probably less traffic than Cost Road has now. Traffic is continually increasing. And it's only gonna get worse. Now's the time to do this before we do have a lot of people impacted. We inherited all this problem because boards before kicked the can down the road. If we put the bridges in where they are and there comes a day 10, 15 years down the road, they gotta realign the road, they gotta buy another culvert because the skew is not gonna line up for the new road. So we might as well plan on doing this stuff and getting it out of the way. And we've invested a lot in infrastructure and it's gonna pay dividends for people in the future. We're doing things that are probably not the easiest thing to worry about spending money on, but we're doing things to get things for the next 50, 100 years to where they need to be for the township.
So the way I'm looking at it, it's 900 just to replace the culverts. If we realistically believe that for another 250 to 3, we can also align the road, that makes much more sense to me than an additional 1.1, right? Realistically. So if I'm on board, if we can accomplish that, if we feel confident in that, maybe we could just verify that that's doable and our staff can handle that. That to me, while we're there, let's do it right for an extra 250 or 3. I don't think we can stomach an extra 1.1. We just have too many priorities. So
Yeah, and I agree.
that's just the way I'm looking at it. I'm on board if we can do that.
No, I mean, that makes more sense. I just want to make sure that the roads that are bad, that we have the majority of the traffic on, that we're making sure those are the priorities, which state is definitely a big concern for me. So,
That's a state road, so if we can get the state to help fund that,
Right.
we're doing them a favor. We did the same with Silver Spring Road when we did the intersection. We put some money into that benefited the state. But I'll tell you one thing, a lot of the residents are happy out there because we don't have queuing of traffic. And you're even one of them that brought up Woods Drive and 114. Look how that failed. Do you know why it failed? Because it was done half.
right.
It was done the
Right.
cheapest way because the developer did that. If they would have spent the money or if we would have been involved and had that design where it needed to be, we wouldn't have traffic backlog. So this is another issue where we got to do it right. And if we can do this spread out and have our forces do stuff to keep the cost down, we're getting more bang for our buck.
Okay, that makes sense. And I appreciate the explanation, both from Dave and from Carl. That makes a lot more sense to me. Thank you.
So, I think what I'm hearing is option 3
Hybrid.
phased out, yeah. Would you, is that kind of what the board would desire, or would you like me to go back and research it with the design team and get back to you in February to make sure that's possible? Up to you guys.
I think, can we have you guys confirm we can pull this off within a 1.1, 1.2?
Yeah.
Sure. I'll double check all of that, and
Okay.
then, when do we have to have the final estimate to the county?
So I think we could talk to Kurt, and knowing that we know what the cost of the culverts are, because that's what the money is
That's
going
the
to be
big one, yeah.
covering. If we can put the culvert estimate into the agreement,
Cool.
and then, because ultimately the rest of the project, we're gonna have to fund anyway.
Right,
you know,
agreed.
So,
Okay.
That 890, if we get 200,000, we only have a 690.
Correct,
outlay.
exposure, yep.
So if we can do the rest for 600, I mean, we're doing it less than, with the culvert only bid. If we had a
Right.
contractor, it would be 1.4. So we're getting double out of it.
Yeah, no, totally understood.
Yeah.
So, I will check with the design team. While we're doing that, I will get the culvert estimates to Tyler and Ray for coordination with the county.
Yep.
And then I'll report back in February to make sure that it's all possible. That way the township doesn't have to spend $2 million or whatever it would be.
And if it takes them 2 winters to break that rock, because.
That's, I mean, they're 100-year structures. A few
Yeah.
years won't hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
no,
agree.
understood. Okay.
Aaron, we got through number 1.
We got through number 1. There we go.
Just approve 2 through 5 and call it a day.
Yeah, right. So Woods Drive widening, I know, so staff had asked me if there could be some widening on Woods Drive this year. My response was probably not, because DEP will treat this as whether we widen one a little bit this year, a little bit next year, they'll treat it as one complete project. And what that means is it all needs to be under the same permit. We can't, if we try to phase it like that and we get caught, especially with all this being on public record, we can get in trouble. The problem with that is then we don't right now know where the stormwater will go. We're in the midst of doing infiltration testing, navigating right of way, where we can fit either swales or storm sewers or whatever we need to do. So it'd be really hard for us to get a holistic view that would satisfy DEP if we would do widening this year. I wanted to
Widening on the south side.
Widening on the south side, correct. So I wanted to bring that to the board's attention to discuss, but ultimately that would be our recommendation.
The issue we run into, water currently goes to the valley there to low.
It does, yeah, right in the middle of it.
If
Oh,
we expand the road width, does that impact, because of the fact that the water currently flows there now, do we have to make accommodations because there's increased
we will.
volume?
Yeah, we will.
Okay. I thought so.
Probably, yeah. So, if I don't hear any pushback, we can maybe push off the widening to a later year.
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't just call it push off until
As
we
part
know
of the
more
project.
information from the engineering side.
True. Yeah.
But if there ever becomes a time where we have the permit and we could do some widening in-house,
Right.
we're still able to
Then
do
you're
that
able to at that
in-house.
point, correct.
Yeah, but it just, at this time, there's still too many unknowns to really pull the trigger and say, let's go widen a section of this
What are the,
this year.
what are the unknowns? When will we know?
So
the
that's on
unknowns?
our, that's on
Okay.
HRG's plate,
Okay.
right? We're trying to get infiltration testing done, as part of the contract that you approved last year. It's hard in the winter, because the ground is frozen. And DEP requires that infiltration testing before they would even approve any permitting. So, the other thing is then the extent of the widening we need to do. Dave mentioned one of the points, it all kind of drains to a valley, but then beyond that valley, it kind of all drains to the warehouses. So yeah. So we're trying to figure out exactly where we can put these facilities, and we just don't have that information right now because of the winter. Okay. Okay, I will move on. On Keswick Drive. So we came in on the overall project for paving and some of the curb replacement that was done in the 24 paving project. We came in slightly under budget. Additionally, we know we have work on Keswick Drive. We did one set of curbs on one side of the road last year. We know we need to do the other side of the road at some point in the future. The contractor on that job is Heim. They operate a lot on the eastern end of the state. They're probably one of the best top three concrete contractors in the state. They're extremely good. They're on this job. They offered to hold their pricing and do the southern side for us this year if we would like. We checked on whether we can do that legally. It appears we can. So we brought before you and we coordinated a change order with Heim so they can now do the southern side of Keswick Drive at the same pricing they did it for last year. And we would still, because we were slightly under budget, be close to budget, maybe a little bit over in the end. But for the overall project, be pretty close in the end.
The age of that road's what, about 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, the rating on the road, if that's what you're referring
Well,
to, is
just the age in general. That's been in about 10 years.
yeah, 2013,
It was
12,
before my time, so yeah.
I thought it was around
right?
2011.
That's that last section of Evergreen. Yeah, 12, 11.
Yeah. So we're actually 12, 13 years old.
Yeah, so the original plan was to mill out the curb line and repave, which we still have that in our budget. That's not included in this change. This is just to pull out the curb and replace the
I'm
curb.
just wondering the age of the road if we don't build curb reveal and put like 1.5 inches on it.
It's up to you guys.
Because it's halfway, and then you're gonna spend money doing half. Because I kept thinking that road was newer, and then I went and looked at it, and I'm there like that's older than what I remembered. I looked at notes, and
You're saying from curb to curb?
just on that block, yeah,
It would be that and Thistle.
yeah.
Those were the two
But
roads.
just build a curb reveal along there because that's rolled curb. Because you're gonna spend half of the amount anyhow, and then you'll have a solid road surface that is the same age.
Now, no, I don't know if Penzi committed to holding their pricing for the paving. This was just the concrete
Yeah, but
sub.
I don't think we had them in for paving on that.
We did not. You're right.
Yeah.
Not on that part of the contract.
Correct.
There's other aspects of the contract that we had them for paving.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, do the curb work this year. It's the other side's.
And then put it on our
base
roadway
in the
pavement plan.
following year,
Yeah.
if we're,
So you want base left then for the
yeah,
remainder of the year?
it's not
Yeah.
gonna deface in a year or so, and then.
No, I agree.
Build a curb line for.
I think
curb
that's
got you.
basically what we
Yeah.
have in mind. I think
Yeah.
we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we had that budgeted for this year.
To do the curbs and.
Yeah. but
Yeah.
we can
No,
let
I'm
it
saying the
sit.
paving aspect.
Yeah, we can, either or, I just assume,
Pave the full width of it.
yeah, just do curb to curb.
Yeah. Well, basically, once the curb work is done and we've got the base after the millings are all
Let it
milled
sit
out.
if
Let it sit and then
And
in
then
26,
26 to it.
Yeah, right.
put it
I'd
in
rather see
roadway.
the curb, like I've seen fresh curb get hit with a roller when they're vibrating and it chips it up. Like if that cures, it isn't.
Yeah.
gonna
Okay,
hurt
yeah,
the set.
yeah,
I'm fine with that. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm good. Yeah.
So, yeah, if that's the board's desire, then you don't have to do it now. It's later on in the agenda, I believe, but you would want to approve the change order then. And I normally, when it comes to things like this that are policy decisions, I don't try to tell you what to do, but I would recommend approving this change order to get someone to hold pricing from the year before on a project we're slightly under budget. I mean, it's a really good deal. So,
And I'll just echo, because we're doing the demo on this project in-house, working with Heim was it was a great outfit to work with our crews out there, because it was kind of a domino effect, right?
Yeah.
We would remove, they would come in right behind us as we moved down the road. So they were a great outfit to work with.
okay, I will move on. I see a bunch of nods. So New Kingstown Multimodal Project. So, we had received, let me, in fact, go back even further. We helped the township apply for a multimodal grant to do a new streetscape for New Kingstown that included mobility improvements, some truck restriction items, all kinds of things. That would amount to, I think, over $2 million. It was given a partial award of a few $100,000 instead. So obviously we cannot, as at the township, afford to do the whole streetscape. Instead, we've decided to work with the residents of New Kingstown and the committee to parcel out the project into different phases. The northeast portion of the village is probably the most important one, according to the committee, I believe. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know we have some committee members here, but that's my understanding, because it provides connectivity to the post office, and also because we have a problem with trucks utilizing North Locust Point Road and South Locust Point Road. Sorry, in this place, it's just north, to get onto East Main Street, which they shouldn't be doing because there's a truck restriction. So taking that all into account, HRG offered to do some free work for New Kingstown to help them come up with a phasing plan on how they could afford all of this in different phases. But then what we need feedback from the board on is what the scope of that northeast project would look like utilizing these grant funds that we were given. In coordination with the Kingstown Vision, we came to a tentative conclusion, but again, wanted to get your confirmation if it was acceptable to you. The residents would prefer to see a series of improvements that I'll list here. One is at the southeast corner of the main square, putting in some type of truck curb and a bump out to prevent trucks from coming north up Locust Point Road and turning on to Main Street. Doing as much as we can at the northeast corner to prevent southbound trucks coming off the pike from using East Main Street. That'll be a harder lift because trucks have a lot more room making that turn, but we can try. Additionally, the sidewalk going from the square on the north side of East Main Street out to the post office, the residents would like to see it kind of replaced in kind where it is, but expanded a little. I think the sidewalk is pretty thin right now. We could always move the sidewalk closer to the road, but then that would require curb to protect residents from, because we would be in the clear zone essentially of where cars could injure residents if they're walking. We would need curb and storm sewer, which would suck up that limited grant funding we got. So instead of that, I think the residents preferred to just do the sidewalk where it is. And then lastly, put signage on the pike to help maybe only one or two trucks, but at least some trucks realize they need to use Farmer Street instead of Locust Point to get in.
Aaron, the other thing is the closer you move the sidewalk, it's more of an inconvenience for the property owner when the snow gets plowed. You have more
That's a
end
good
up
point.
on it.
Honestly, I didn't even think about that,
Yeah,
but you're right.
It's the worst thing in the world is to put sidewalk up
Yeah.
tight up against the curb line.
Agreed. So we put together a draft scope encompassing some of these items. We're going to have to modify it. But before we bring it to the board next month for your approval, we wanted to make sure you were on board with that so we can craft that scope accurately. Is that series of improvements acceptable to you guys then?
That's in line with what we hashed out at the budget meeting, I believe, so.
Okay.
Aaron, I think we have a big sign up there now.
There is one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if you put another sign up there.
Yeah, it's like throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. Honestly,
Yeah.
I'm not sure it will have more than an effect on one or two trucks a day, but if it does prevent at least that much, it still might be a win.
In neon lights.
Yeah, I mean, if PennDOT would let us, we'll
Yeah.
see if we can flash the signs. Yeah.
So 30 years ago, people paid attention to signs. Now with the GPS.
Yeah, they don't look at them at
they look
all.
at that,
I
they
agree
listen
with
to
you.
that, and the hell with what's on the sign.
Yeah, I think so. And I haven't broached this topic with the residents of New Kingstown, but I think the way I've been going through this in my mind and our bid strategy, I think the signage we would probably in the bid documents put as an alternate. And if we can afford the signage with the grant money, then we would include it. And if not, we wouldn't. But all the other improvements would be part of the base bid then to make sure the residents get what they need.
Yeah, I would say if we can't afford the sign because we already have a sign there.
Right.
Then, let's use the money.
Yeah, exactly
To go to
right.
something else would benefit the town.
Agreed. Okay, so I see a bunch of nods. I will craft that proposal with that scope and get it back in front of you for February then. Lastly, then, the Joe Rickey Trail Project. Before you tonight will be a few motions to help acquire. Now, it's not the exact right of way. It's a permanent easement. So we're not going to take ownership of that land, but we will get access across a strip of land at the quick fill to make sure we can connect the whole trail because there isn't as much right of way there as is shown on the property mapper.
My wishes are we impact them as minimum as we can if we keep it out to the curb line, because like I
Sure.
said before, they've lost probably 35 feet,
Mhm.
the whole length of Maple Drive. when we did the project to put the turn lane on Maple,
Yeah.
they lost a significant amount of property there. I want to make the impact as minimal as possible for them.
No, totally understood. And if it helps with any heartburn, this easement is, I believe, only about 2 feet wide. So the impact is very minimal. It's 2 feet wide by maybe 100 feet long.
Keep it out to the curb line.
As far as we
best you
can, correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
I don't want to impact them.
Yeah. No, totally understood. And I think we're pretty well in line with that. And I think we've covered my whole update unless Tyler, Ray, you want me to cover anything else?
No, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, all right, me too.
Thanks, Aaron.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Good
Yep.
discussion. Okay, that brings us to expense approvals, the change order for Evergreen that we talked about. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve Tennessee Supply Incorporated change order number 1 for Evergreen 2 Keswick Drive curb project in amount not to exceed $97,000.
Dave moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Nancy second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any, that motion carries. We have a motion for the easement. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the estimated value of 20,000 for temporary construction, for a temporary construction easement and pavement sidewalk, I can't read.
You're almost there.
Permanent sidewalk easement for Manufacturers Equity Corporation, Quick Fill, located at 68479 Carlisle Pike, Mechanicsburg.
Nancy moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Laura second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, if any, that motion carries. And we have resolution 2025-03. This is related to the same easement, I believe. Is that right, Ray?
That's correct.
Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Nancy moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Dave second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, if any, that motion carries. All right. We'll close out. We'll go around supervisor and staff comments. Scott?
Just a follow up on the public discussion. I invite all the board members to come to the planning commission to hear the discussion, so it's not just my recollection on historical data.
Thanks, Scott. Willetta? Amy? Glenn? Tyler?
Yes. So just recreation events coming up in the new year here, February 21st. We're going to have the Central PA Blood Drive at the Silver Spring Banquet Hall there from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. So if you want to give blood, that is active now. So go check that out. It's on our website and social media. And then the second event of the year is going to be the Jig Jog 5K again on March 8th at Stony Ridge Park at 10 a.m. And we are going to be partnering again with Hampton Township and our local representatives to have a shredded event again. We are close to having a date locked down, but as soon as we get that, we'll release that as well.
Thanks, Tyler. Cheryl? Chief?
Two things. Last week, the flag was raised back to full staff. Somebody called in and asked Amy about it. She called me. I tend to take care of the flag. That's my error. I was asked, hey, when do we raise the flag? I said, we always raise it after the funeral is over, not thinking it was lowered for President Carter. That carried with it a 30-day lowering. It was immediately fixed. It is still at half staff. It'll remain there till the 28th as per the directive. So my apologies for that. It was probably at full staff for a day when it should not have been. That was my error. And second, this past Sunday, January 19th, is the date that Paul Walters was killed in the line of duty here. And that this past Sunday was the 50th anniversary of it. It was 1975. So we always remember Paul on our social media and with his family. They're fantastic folks. And just ask that everybody take a second to think of Paul.
Thanks, Chief. Appreciate it. Solicitor Schultz? Ray?
Yeah, Representative Cutts actually had a staffing change. Claire Weigel, who's been a big part of support, he's moving on with his family's business. And we have a new support person who we're going to meet next week, Brett Gavin. So we're going to we get a chance to meet Brett. And so we appreciate the work that we do with our representatives. So thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Aaron?
I do have one point of clarification, and then I'll leave you guys alone. The costs I gave you for Cost Road, please note that those are not final costs. They're very rough estimates. We do not have final design, so.
Why is that Ouija board changing?
Yeah,
I'm telling you right now.
I just want to promise, I don't want you to think that those are the hard costs.
All
They
right,
may
we
change.
see the asterisk there.
Yeah.
We got it.
Deal. That's all.
Thanks. Laura?
Nothing.
Nancy?
I do have something. I'd like, we had that apartment hearing earlier this evening that was moved forward to next month. And that brought to mind, you know, we have some large apartment complexes on the books, so to speak, but we have a couple of 4, 5 acre, 5, 6, 8 acre parcels within the township in residential areas that might be conducive to doing some kind of small apartment situations or doing some kind of townhomes.
Mhm.
And I was wondering if we could have staff take a look at what those opportunities or not opportunities might be.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dave.
I was gonna say, I echo that. It was to be in the zoning change when we did the ordinances over
In
back.
22, you mean?
Yeah, and they were directed to take it out by one supervisor who did not speak for the whole board. I just wanted, this is the time, if anybody has an objection to it, speak now, don't go to staff after. But I thought it was already in the ordinance that we approved, and then I come to find out from staff that it wasn't. So all I ask is, if somebody has an objection to something at that time, speak, don't go to staff afterwards, because the majority at that stage, we agreed, we thought it was imperative that we do this because we have a lack of rental areas that we can put multifamily in. We are in a deficit, especially in the smaller scale that we have in certain areas, one of which is like located near where I grew up. And I thought it worked quite well. It was mixed with residential housing. I think, you know, these tracks that we're talking about and we discussed when we did doing the zoning ordinance over are along 114 and arterial roads where we're not going to impact local traffic. So I agree. I echo with what Nancy says. And I think that, you know, we need to be planning to provide for all types of housing. So.
So just so we're clear, I'm gonna borrow some ideas that Scott had said. Just so we're all clear about a thought, which I understand. As we're going through the ordinance draft, what you're looking to do is we can bring back to the board what that language might look like for the board, all the board, to discuss whether that's the type of zoning we'd like to allow. Is that what the request is? I just want to make sure.
I'd also be interested in how many
Yeah, I mean,
pockets of those places there are.
So we would come back with a suggestion on that. We would come back with how many might be in the group that's considered.
Yeah, right. I don't mean to cut you off, but let's refine this a little bit more, because this happens quite frequently when I, directed the due ordinances here. Are we in agreement with MUB? Right, MUB is the section of 114 from Woods down to the borough line and the boot that's on Trindle. That's kind of the MUB area that was talked about previously in the 22 updates that was looked at for. Now the MUB area does allow for duplexes, but in the original idea during committee was to actually put apartment buildings along 114 in that general area. So if we're in agreement with that, I can resurrect ideas that we had back then. Or are we opening this up to other areas? And that's all I need, and then I can get to the density and everything else.
I would say when we originally discussed this, and I think I spoke to Nancy, her and I were on the same page of what was discussed. It was arterial roads or collector. We don't want to put them on roads that are non-arterial or collector. And the area 114 Trindle Road were roads general that met that, and that multi-use zone, there's not a ton of tracks, there's a few that.
Yeah, I just don't want to, like, I don't want to start throwing darts at
No, no, no,
parcels,
but if
right?
there's
So
something,
then,
it's something we're not
then
thinking
what's going to
of.
happen, right? If I do that, right? If I start throwing darts at parcels that I could think, then the public's going to come back and say Scott's already predetermining
Scott,
what's going here.
let's just
So-
address where the conflict is, and that's that zone, right? There,
Yeah, that
where I
if we
think
want to
we're-
go back to the
yeah.
historic, or again, going back to historical stuff, if historical discussion, if we're good with that MUB area, then I can go from there.
What, can you just clarify? We do allow, I don't have it in front of me. I know it's mixed use.
Duplexes.
We allow duplexes, but
So
not,
not apartment, like
Okay.
and so apartment buildings or multifamily that you would typically see, what is, being suggested for up with the text amendment on Delta, or something that's down behind Sam's Club that's, been talked about, stuff like that, stuff that's not actually a duplex that qualifies as a dual building.
yeah, okay.
So yeah, so
I don't
it'd
know
be
that,
apartment, like kind of what's already on 114 over,
I don't-
in the middle there.
I don't know, I get a little nervous when we say like, and I don't think this would be the case, but what we're gonna see behind Sam's, I'm not sure,
Nothing
right?
like that.
Okay, yeah.
You
'cause
won't
that-
get the density. So
Yeah,
this is
right.
where we get to, this is where we get into, everything, right? The density that we allow at in the C2 and the C3 district is 12 dwelling units per acre gross. That's what's being suggested over there.
Okay.
This density would be much lower because it's going to be a smaller acreage.
Got it,
So
okay.
that's something that we talked about previously.
I thought the density was greater than 12 an acre.
No, it's 12 per acre. It's
12
12 per
units.
acre. 12 dwelling units per acre gross in the C2, C3 area is the exact same request that Delta is requesting.
I will say something though, if the tract presents itself, there's enough acreage, I think you need to look at that. Like if you have a smaller tract, I don't think, that lends itself to have that many, but like, I'm just throwing out, not that it could happen. The old Whitecoat tract, technically that piece touches, 114 there.
Yeah, that
back
zone,
half.
right? So that's zoned office. So but I see what you're saying. I get where you're getting
Yeah,
at.
like,
It's
so
there
if that
might be
was-
parcels that present themselves that could accommodate higher density.
So we need to-
Correct. But we can play, but what I need direction though is the board okay with me resurrecting this historical conversation? If that's yes, then I can go from there.
Sorry, I'd like to add something. We talked about the mixed use B all along 114 and Trundle Road, and we talked about that in the zoning update committee. Nancy and I did. And I was in favor of that, so I'm not sure what you're talking about, Dave. I'm in favor of having those smaller parcels be considered for other uses. That's why we did the mixed use B. So in case even along 114, we talked about if there was ever a desire to have commercial use where there are currently residences, that would be possible. So I'm not sure, I
We're not
was
talking
never,
about the commercial, we're
So-
talking about apartments.
right, and that's
Staff was
fine.
directed to take it out,
Well,
so.
it wasn't by me, I can tell you that for sure. Because I was completely in favor of that as well. If you're talking about 15, 20 acre tracts, I might be interested in those for land preservation, but smaller tracts, I have no problem with that. So just to be clear.
Well, then I think we're all on the same
Yeah, I think
page.
let's revisit it.
So I will put something together and
Great.
you'll see something.
Thank you.
But again, this will delay, this is going into what we're doing now, this potentially will delay what we're doing. So just everybody's upfront about it.
You're
This
talking
is
about
gonna delay that.
the text updates, you mean?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. What's,
do it right.
this, everything that's in, going to zoning hearing board and going to PC, there's a potential that if we're adding this in and we have to have multiple discussions on this, this is going to linger. So which I'm fine with, right? I'm fine with it take as long as it needs to get done, I'm fine with. But I'm making it clear right now so there's no surprises if this takes longer.
We're clear.
Think,
We're
there's-
clear, but June's the last date, so that's pretty clear here.
Yeah.
Thanks for the February 21st, Scott.
Okay, Nancy, anything else?
No.
Thank you. Harry?
Tyler, would you please reach out to Public Works and thank them for what they've been doing on the roads and stuff? I know it's very important with the real low temperatures and stuff with ice and everything. So reach out to them and thank them for the work they've done.
Thanks, Harry. Dave?
Chief, I got a question. What's the status of the towing guidelines? From the towns, we limited it to the people within the township. But we're ultimately, we're gonna try to keep the business in the township, correct? Okay, so you're gonna get their input, come together with a final product. Okay, and you're gonna give them like the things that came from, okay. Yeah, I heard another instance where somebody had something, and it's concerning, like administrative charges, like $300-400, they're like, this is getting ridiculous. How long does it take to fill an invoice out on, for someone to pay and you charge them $300, $400? That's ridiculous. So I think we gotta get this stopped. That's all I'm saying.
Dave, do you want to comment on it?
Yeah, like with the towing in the township, like you said, I don't think it's right that we bring people in from Harrisburg, other municipalities, and these guys are getting way out of control for your township people, the visitors. When we're talking $1,400, $1,500, $2,100 bills for a tow in a day's time is ridiculous.
Are you with the?
Yeah, I'm with HJ Towing.
Okay, and one thing, I just brought this up to the chief, like, you guys are located, you have a shop in the township, we have a few others that are in commercially zoned. You guys pay taxes to us, we owe something to you. If we didn't have towing companies within the bounds of the township, I totally agree
Yes, sir.
that then we'd have to go outside and work something out, but, I mean, I think we've been served well for the most part by those in the township that have been reputable, that have done their work. I think we owe something to them. The ones that we've had issues with, we're trying to get it rectified. But I know in general, we've had good success with most of them. It's just we've had some problem areas with certain individuals and we're trying to get, my opinion, we need to get it straightened out.
Yeah, and I totally agree because it's, while the cost of living is going up and everything, you have had people that, have served the community for 50+ years. These other guys are coming in thinking they're just gonna make bank and buy new trucks and all that off the citizens, and it's really a racket at some point, so.
No, I agree.
All right.
I'm glad you took the
Thank you for
time.
coming.
I didn't know you were sitting there, so.
Thanks for hanging in with us on it.
Thanks, Chris, I hear the bark and people bark at me and I know that you guys are working on it, but we need to get it under control. So enough of that. You guys do a great job. I want to keep us in good standing with the citizens.
Thanks, Dave. Ray, you wanted to?
Yeah, I just want to know, Bill's not here. Bill was very proactive during this really frigid weather. I don't know if everybody saw, we posted, we had set up a shelter. We did have one person use the shelter, which to me is fantastic because somebody needed it. Secondly, we also, Bill went out of his way, and I won't get into the location, but Bill went out of his way. First the call went to Tyler, and then Tyler got it to Bill, and we had someone who needed oil, and the road wasn't done. It's a private road. At the end of the day, Bill coordinated the opportunity to get the residents some oil. So there are two examples I know out of 23,000 people who live here, but they're two people that were able to get served. And we were one of the few actually who set up a shelter. And hats off to Bill for taking the initiative to do that. So, and hats off to all the people in our fire departments that made available their physical locations for anybody that was seeking any heat or just basic shelter. So I just want to publicly not only thank Bill, I want to publicly thank our fire departments for those kinds of things that go way above and beyond what they do on a daily basis. So Glenn, I know you're here on behalf of that. I just want to say thank you to you and everybody that does that. So thank you.
So often people don't know about those little things that happen. And thank you for bringing that up.
Thanks, Ray.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Well, you forgot one person. Nancy opened her house to anybody that needed to stay warm too. So you gotta thank her too.
Dave, go sit in the car.
I'll just close.
Start it up first.
Just,
So you opened your
just one comment to close out. I just want to echo what Harry said and Ray said. Tyler, thank you and the guys. I know it's sacrifice of time away from family, so we appreciate you guys. I always say that it's foundational, right? Without you guys, none of us are going about our day, and it often goes unseen. So we see you and appreciate it, and just pass that along if
Thank
you
you.
could. So thank you. Any final comment? Yeah, take us home, Kathy. Thanks, Kathy. All righty then. Any objection to adjournment? All
I'm
right, meeting's
here.
adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.